Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to day 24 of the Karen Reed retrial. My name is Debbie. Welcome to my channel. We missed something yesterday. The Commonwealth rested, and we missed it because we were behind the live and I zoom past it. So we are going to watch that real quick before we get started with the live trial today. Good morning, everybody. Hey, Carla, Judy, Dr. Nancy, Jilly Bean, Terry. Judy, did I miss anybody? When Hank Brennan was first appointed special prosecutor, he said that he had two core obligations: making certain that Karen Reed received a fair trial. Okay. And ensuring that the facts surrounding John O'Keefe's death are fully and fairly aired in the courtroom. Alrighty then. That's what Shadow thinks about that. Yeah. I don't believe him either, Shadow. I agree with you. 100%. Okay. He has failed miserably. Absolutely. He's the... Hey, Robbie. He has been the biggest impediment to her getting a fair trial as anybody. I mean, well, maybe not. I started to say the last trial was more fair, but maybe not. Because if the jury was rigged, as some people have said, I'm not saying that's true, I'm just saying some people have said that, then it wasn't a fair trial. But at least Lally trotted out every single person that was there that night, which I'm not saying that Brennan should do that again, but I'm just saying none of the people there saw him on the lawn. And I think that it would be really important for the jury to know that. I know they're not going to trot him all out in front of the jury again this time, but nobody saw him. That would be the big question for me. If I was on that jury, where did he go? Nobody saw him after he got out of that car until the next morning when he was dead on the lawn. How does that happen? That makes no sense. And that would be the one thing that would stick in my craw if I was on that jury. That alone is reasonable doubt. How do you hit somebody with a car in front of a house where nobody hears it, nobody sees it, people leave the house and nobody sees a body on the lawn? How does that happen? To me, that's impossible. Absolutely impossible. So, I don't understand that. So, in that respect, I think she got a more fair trial last time. Yet, if the jury was rigged, like people are saying, then that wasn't a fair trial. This is more of a fair trial. Yet, Brennan is playing dirty at every turn, like every chance he gets. He keeps accusing the defense of being dirty, and he's the one that's being dirty, and that pisses me off so much. Like, I can't even tell you how angry that makes me. That's not being fair at all. Absolutely not fair. I hate mean people. I hate mean people. There's no reason to be mean at all. People are mean. I mean, not in this situation, but usually people are mean to make themselves feel better because they're hurting inside. And you can help people that are hurting, but if they're mean to help themselves, that's no. Like, if somebody needs help, help them. But if they're mean, do you get what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to help somebody if they're mean because they've been hurt. If they've been hurt, I will help them. But if they're trying to be mean to others to fix themselves, no. And that's like the Jen McCabe's of the world, you know? Like, go hurt. If you're going to, I know that sounds bad, but if you're going to be mean to other people to make yourself feel better, go hurt in your own little corner. I'm not going to help you. I know that sounds mean, but okay, here we go.
Commonwealth moves to introduce and play clip 26.
So I thought, could I have run him over? Did he try to get me as I was leaving? It was the blasting. It's snowing. I got the wipers going, the heater blasting. Did he come and hit the back of my car and I hit him and he's drunk and passed out and asphyxiated or something? And then when I hired David Yannetti, I asked him those questions the night of January 29th. Like, David, what if, I don't know, what if I ran his foot over or what if I clipped him in the knee and he passed out or went to care for himself and he threw up or passed out, and David said, yeah, then you have some element of culpability.
Exhibit 207.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth rests.
Okay. Does counsel want to see me?
We do, Your Honor.
Okay, so should we send the jury out or
Probably, yes.
so jurors, so everybody can sit. So jurors, the Commonwealth rests. That means that the Commonwealth's case has been presented to you for your consideration. So I need to meet with the lawyers for a few minutes, so we're going to send you back out. I can tell you that it now appears that we're at least on schedule, if not a little ahead of us.
We don't need to hear her anymore. Okay. So that's what we missed yesterday. So that clip was terrible for Karen, but at the same time, that's reasonable doubt, because she's saying, what if I clipped him, ran over his foot, hit him in the knee? She doesn't know what happened. Nobody knows what happened. Welcher doesn't know what happened. Nobody knows what happened. Excuse me. That's reasonable doubt, y'all. That's reasonable doubt. Now, if people on the jury are going to see it that way, but it's definitely not murder too, because she didn't do it on purpose. She doesn't know if she did it. She's asking, even with her, I hit him, if that really did happen and she really said, I hit him, it still wasn't murder too. Because she said, could I have hit him? Did I hit him? Even at that point, if she was blaming herself, like if she thought at that point that she hit him, it was an afterthought. It wasn't like, I got mad at him last night and I backed into him with the car and I hit him. It wasn't that kind of a confession. I did this on purpose. I hit him. You know what I mean? So, like, it's not murder, too. It's absolutely not murder, too. I don't even think they're going to get manslaughter out of it, though, because I don't think he was hit with a car. I don't. But I don't think that any of these clips prove that she planned to do this on purpose. Even though that does look very, very bad for the defense. That last clip does look very, very bad. So, and the first witness today is supposed to be DeSogra, which is the defense's counterpart to Burgess. What technically was Burgess's title? What was he? He wasn't a crime scene reconstructionist, was he? Shadow, I am busy. Can I finish what I'm doing before I pet you, please? She's like, no, you can't. Madam said hello. She says hi back.
What do you need, Kristen?
Now opening AC.
Mind if I go get coffee? Sure. What do you need? Thank you. So I was told council want to see me at sidebar?
Are you kidding me? Now I pet you. Take a morning, everybody. You wanted me to pet you. Mwah. You wanted me to pet you. I'm petting you. Can you quit hitting me in the head with your tail, please? Shadow. Quit hitting me with your tail. Stop. Ouch. Yeah, the keyboard is on the table so you don't step on it. Yeah, me too. I think Peter said that they couldn't play random clips, but they could play clips that would put those clips in context. Like where he cut her off in mid sentence, like they can play the whole entire clip. But that was all they could do as far as the clips were concerned. Yeah, she does. And then when she looks at the jury and smiles and talks to them, she seems like a really nice person. It's just a shame she's on the side of this that she is. I got her those big round buttons. And I put labels on them. And I recorded my voice. She wouldn't touch them.
We'll start with the required finding argument.
So jury's not there yet, I guess.
So I'll hear you whenever you're ready, Mr. Jackson.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you. We filed this morning a motion for required finding of not guilty under Massachusetts Rule of Criminal Procedure.
Oh, JOA.
That's before the court. The comment is relatively brief, but it's important, and the points that I'm going to make in the next couple of seconds or next couple of minutes are equally important.
She's going to deny it.
It comes down to the following. The Commonwealth has simply not proven, even in a light most favorable to them, that there was a collision on January 29th, 2022 at 34 Fairview in Canton, Massachusetts. There was no collision proven to have occurred. There was no eyewitness presented. There was no video evidence, no audio evidence, no evidence in the form of physical evidence at the scene by searches that were done by officers on the morning of January 29th, 2022. The Commonwealth, through suspect experts based on circumstantial technical data, only sought to prove a backing event, and that's important. They sought to prove that at 34 Fairview, the SUV went backward. They did not prove, and every single one of their experts was asked this question.
That's right.
They did not prove that there was actually a collision associated with that backing event.
That's right.
The Commonwealth experts said at best that the car went in reverse, and it was suspect whether it went in reverse at 34 Fairview or some other place, time, or date. The Commonwealth also put on an expert who said that she...
Yeah, but you know what I don't like about the beard? It's not connected. He needs to connect it. He needs to connect the, why can't you guys see my cursor? He needs to connect the sideburns to the beard.
Found no injuries, none, mind you, indicative of a vehicle strike on John O'Keefe's body. And she, Dr. Irini Scordibello, was arguably their most important witness. The Commonwealth cannot and did not say or prove a collision at a particular time, a collision at a particular place, a collision with a particular person or that a collision even occurred on January 29th, 2022 at or around or at or after 12:30 in the morning. Their own expert, I think it was yesterday, if not the day before yesterday, was asked on examination by Mr. Alessi, can you tell us the particulars of the collision, pardon me, as you suggested in your testimony? And his answer was, there's simply not enough evidence. He was asked specifically, why didn't you try to recreate the circumstances, the force impact? That's what you do, sir. You're a biomechanic expert. Recreate it for us. And he said, there's not enough evidence. There is evidence, however, that Brian Higgins and Brian Albert were sparring at 34 Fairview. There is evidence, however, that was just minutes, not hours, not days, minutes before John O'Keefe ultimately met his fate at 34 Fairview. There is evidence that Brian Higgins was love-struck, that he was jealous, that he was aggressively coaxing John O'Keefe out of the waterfall, that he was passively aggressively coaxing Miss Reed to engage with him rather than John O'Keefe. Again, there's not a single eyewitness to a collision. There was not even a single eyewitness to a backing event at 34 Fairview. The court will recall Jennifer McCabe testified that she basically watched the SUV the entirety of the time it was in front of the location at 34 Fairview with Miss Reed in the driver's seat. She saw it pull up once. She saw it pull up twice. She saw it pull up a third time. And then she saw it was gone. And at no time did she ever see the car go in reverse. She certainly didn't see the SUV go in reverse at a high speed. And she darn sure didn't see the car go in reverse at a high speed and strike a pedestrian. Her focus was defined enough to see thin tire tracks in a dusting of snow, thin enough, I think the phrase was, to track a cat. That's how detailed she was in her observations, yet she did not see John O'Keefe hit by an SUV. She did not see John O'Keefe's body in the snow, in the yard, laying prostrate, a 216-pound, 6'1" man in the snow, directly in front of the SUV she was tracking the entire time. There are two other witnesses, Ryan Nagel, Heather Maxson. They both noted that John O'Keefe, not that they didn't see him, Your Honor, that John O'Keefe was not in the vehicle when they were behind him. The dome light was on. They could see inside the interior of the vehicle. Miss Reed was sitting there with her hands at 10 and 2, and the passenger seat, notably and markedly, was empty. He was not outside the vehicle. He wasn't standing. He wasn't sitting. He wasn't lying down. There's only one place he could be: inside the curtilage of the home, inside the house, or inside the garage. Not one witness that was inside the house, not one passerby, not one neighbor, not one plow driver ever saw John O'Keefe's body laying prostrate in the snow that morning. Not one. Not until Karen Reed found Mr. O'Keefe at about 6:03. And again, the Commonwealth's chief medical expert, Dr. Scortibello, their medical examiner, who is the only person that the court heard from or will ever hear from who actually investigated John O'Keefe's physical body, the only person to have physical access to John O'Keefe, testified he did not have any injuries consistent with being struck by a vehicle. But she did indicate that the injuries, as did the firefighters, the first responders, indicate that he had injuries consistent with a physical altercation. And certainly, as to counts 1 and 3, no evidence has been presented or proffered whatsoever by the Commonwealth that Karen Reed intended to run over and harm John O'Keefe in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Hearken to the video at CF McCarthy's. Hearken to the video at the waterfall. Every witness confirmed what our eyes could see. That night, John O'Keefe, Karen Reed were loving, caring, affectionate. There's absolutely no evidence that Karen Reed had an intent to harm John O'Keefe, or that that after the fact, that she intended to leave him for dead, because there was no fact to be after. There was no collision in the first place. The Commonwealth's case, certainly on counts 1 and 3, taken separate from count 2, because of the mens rea associated with counts 1 and 3, fails miserably. The Commonwealth, at the end of the day, has presented their best case. They've done their best. Some would say they've done their worst. And their case has failed. No reasonable jury, hearkening back to the standard under Rule 25, no reasonable jury could find Karen Reed guilty of count 1, count 2, or count 3. But taking count 1 and 3 aside, those are separate counts because of the mens rea required and the high burden that's required, even taken in the light most favorable to the Commonwealth. What evidence have they proven that Karen Reed intended to kill or harm John O'Keefe, or that she intended to leave him for dead in the snow? The answer is none, zero. No reasonable jury could find Karen Reed guilty. This case never should have been brought in the first place. There are reasons that I won't go into here. The court knows those reasons, or knows our position on those reasons. This was a vindictive prosecution, and I believe that the court is duty-bound pursuant to the precepts of Rule 25A, as well as the principles of justice, to dismiss all 3 counts, and certainly taking count 1 and count 3 aside, the court is duty-bound to dismiss those 2 counts. Thank you.
She ain't gonna do it, Jackson. You know that. Good try, though. Wish she would. She needs to. Now go home.
In a light
Already.
most favorable to the Commonwealth, the first issue the court should look to is intoxication. The reasonable fact finder would find that the defendant was in fact intoxicated. Based on the serum conversion and based on Karen Reed's statements herself, you've heard many, many admissions by the
You didn't
defendant
charge with DUI, Hank.
about her level of intoxication, which far surpassed the statutory mandate that she consumed alcohol in a way that to operate safely. Those are just 2 of cornerstone pieces of intoxication, which are clear, light most favorable to the Commonwealth, a reasonable fact finder could find beyond a reasonable doubt.
She's not charged with DUI,
The
though, Hank.
evidence of collision is abundant. I do not want to go through the entire
BS.
closing argument or rhetoric. Suffice, there are taillight fragments from the defendant's own Lexus from her shattered right taillight that are found in Mr. O'Keefe's clothes. Mr. O'Keefe is left at the very spot where she expects to find him, according to her statements, where her car does a backing maneuver at least 24 miles per hour. He is left with injuries on his arm consistent with the damage to her Lexus right rear taillight. The scientific data is substantial. Telestream data, Apple Healthcare data, battery temperature data.
It's not healthcare. It's
And
health.
again, Ms. Reed's statements herself about clipping, hitting. The evidence of a collision in this case is overwhelming. It is a public way. Lieutenant Gallagher told us about Fairview as being a public way. And so as to the operating under the influence of alcohol manslaughter, the conduct of driving in that forward and backing maneuver after being intoxicated meets clearly the standard for OUI manslaughter. Regarding second-degree murder, as highlighted in my opening statement, the defendant engaged in intentional conduct that was her maneuver of driving forward, stopping, and then driving back to Mr. O'Keefe on January 29, 2022. Under the conditions that night, after being intoxicated, that conduct was intentional. And any reasonable person could find that her conduct that night created a plain and strong likelihood of death. There is no predicate of intending to kill or even intending to hit. There is clearly a plain and strong likelihood of death driving a 6,000-pound SUV forward and then back. In addition to state of mind, again, the defendant tells us herself. Through firefighter Becker, they're arguing, they're upset. We see the text messages, evidence of attempted breakup, and we hear the words of Karen Reed when she leaves numerous voicemails that night, and you can hear her voice.
She clearly thought
There are
Well,
statements,
why?
I do not want to go through a summary of all of them, but statements from the defendant herself where she acknowledges an injury to Mr. O'Keefe. She's allowing him in her hypotheses about hitting and clipping him. As to leaving the scene, again, the defendant tells us that when she leaves wounded, she leaves him, makes
No, that's not what
dozens
she
and
said.
dozens of calls,
You liar.
but never goes back to help him to die.
Oh, you
And we
lie.
heard from Dr. Wolf about the life-saving procedures that could have been initiated. The chance of survival was never given to John O'Keefe. All those facts suffice under Lattimore, a light most favorable to the government, that a reasonable fact finder would find beyond a reasonable doubt, or could find beyond a reasonable doubt, each and every element, each and every one of the charges.
All right, thank you. So the motion is denied as to all three indictments. On the other topic that we were discussing at sidebar, I don't need to hear argument on that right now, Ms. Gianetti. I'd prefer to get started. I would like you and Mr. Brennan to talk to the proposal. So are we ready to bring the jury in? I did not ask you at sidebar. Are you ready for this witness, Mr. Brennan? Mr.
I'm ready.
Okay, so,
Thank you.
all right, so we'll bring the jury in. That will take 5 minutes, Paul. All right, so we'll take these.
All rise, please.
The part about he did not look mortally wounded, she said that in an interview, but she wasn't talking about that night. She didn't know whether or not could I have hit him? Could I have run over his foot? Could I have clipped him in the knee? Could I have hit him? Did I hit him? That's what she said. She didn't know that she hit him. She obviously thought he was still alive, which is what all the voicemail was about. She thought she was talking to a live person. She didn't think he was dead. She didn't say he didn't look mortally wounded when she hit him. That is not what she said. He's totally taking that out of context. And he played that during opening, and AJ got up there and corrected it and said, she's not saying that night. She's saying that the next morning when she found him in the snow. He did not look mortally wounded the next morning when she found him in the snow. Because he did not look like he'd been hit by a car. All of his injuries were to his face and head. Right. Exactly. He did not look like he was hit by a car. But when she said he didn't look mortally wounded, she didn't say that at the time because she didn't see him at the time. Nobody saw him at the time. Supposedly, he just disappeared, poof, out of existence from 12:20. What's the time they're saying? 12:20, 12:30, whatever, till 6 o'clock the next morning. Nobody saw him. Somebody had to have seen him. Of course, I knew they were going to deny it. They always do. It's just protocol. I don't even know why they bother. I mean, I've seen it done once, and that was in Judge Fleischer's court, and it was a DUI, and I forgot why. And it was something that the cop did. The cop made a mistake. I don't remember what it was, but it was because the cop screwed up. Oh, we're caught up to the live. What is Burgess's official title? Was he wasn't an accident reconstructionist, was he? That was Welcher. So what was Burgess? Because this is like the defense's version. DeSogra is the defense's version of Burgess. And the ARCA guys are the defense's version of Welcher. So we're thinking DeSogra today, and then next week we'll start with the ARCA guys. Yeah, remember that one, Nancy? That was so weird. He's like, yes, I'm going to dismiss it because you didn't have probable cause or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was. And I was just like, oh my God, I have never seen a JOA get granted before. I was shocked. But it was, yeah, the cop made a mistake. It was crazy. I was like, oh my God. Yeah, I've never seen it in a murder trial get granted. Ever. Yeah, it's just, I guess, something they gotta do. Oh no, Nancy, I didn't see that one. That poor guy.
You are unmuted.
hearing all persons have any business before the Honorable Beverly Chenoweth, Norfolk Superior Court, and for the County of Norfolk. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. Say the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, this court is now open. You may be seated.
Good morning again, council. Good morning again, Ms. Reed. Good morning, jurors. Happy Friday. So I do have to ask you, there's 3 questions. Were you all able to follow my instructions and refrain from discussing this case with anyone since we left yesterday? Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Were you also able to follow the instructions and refrain from doing any independent research or investigation into this case? Yes. Everyone said yes or nodded affirmatively. Did anyone happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case since left yesterday? No. As you know, yesterday the Commonwealth rested, and as you know, the defendant has absolutely no burden of proof in this case. Does not have to put on a case, but I hear that you are. So your first witness, please, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. With the court's permission, we would ask that Matthew DeSogra join us.
Okay.
What side is my laptop doing?
So you're gonna step up, face the clerk, and raise your right hand.
You solemnly swear the evidence you give to the court and jury in the case down here is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Good morning. All right, Mr. Jackson, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Mr. DeSogra, could you please state your full name and spell your last name for the jurors? Please?
Sure. Matthew DeSogra, last name Disogra.
What do you do for a living, sir?
I am a licensed professional engineer. I practice in the field of accident reconstruction. And within that field, I specialize in analysis, interpretation, and accessing all types of vehicle data.
How are you currently employed?
I'm employed by Delta V Forensic Engineering, which is an engineering firm that specializes in accident reconstruction, all parts of accident reconstruction.
Tell us a little bit more about Delta V. What is it? What kind of company is it? But other than that specialty, what else does it do?
So accident reconstruction is a broad field. There are a lot of subspecialties within that. So accident reconstruction is everything from the initial investigation phases of crash all the way through testimony, like here today. Some of the specialties within that could be things like biomechanics, could be human factors, and my specialty is data, vehicle data, and event data recorders.
Staying on that topic, what is your current title or position with Delta V?
I am the director of engineering for our EDR.
What does EDR services mean?
So event data recorders. So EDR is a general term we use to talk about all types of data from all types of vehicles.
And how would you describe your role as the director of engineering?
In the director role, I oversee a group. It's not just me doing this kind of work. I have 3 other engineers that work with me, all specializing in EDRs. So I oversee that group and focus on kind of the day-to-day operations coming. The role of data is growing, so we're kind of looking to the future in a lot of those ways.
As a consulting engineer, you've indicated what your specialization is. Do you specialize in motor vehicle accident reconstruction as well as...
Career at Delta V doing traditional accident reconstruction in the broadest sense. And as I have progressed, I have sort of narrowed myself down and now specialize in that. But I still consider myself an expert anytime we're doing reconstruction.
You talked about event data recorders, do you also engage in the specialty of advanced data recovery methods? In other words, methods of pulling the data. It's one thing to have it sitting in a car. It's another thing to pull it out and make it useful.
Data can be accessed all the way from just plugging into a port on a working vehicle, all the way through when a vehicle is catastrophically damaged, and even the modules themselves are damaged, accessing the data at the chip level. So no matter what condition a vehicle or the remnants of a vehicle are in, generally we can still get the data from that.
Do you have any specific knowledge about Toyota?
Beyond it quite frequently. Just this year, we published a paper specifically studying some of the behaviors of the additional data recorder that's in Toyota vehicles.
Does Toyota make another sub-brand, Toyota brand?
Correct.
Okay. What is infotainment? It's kind of a combination of a couple of words, information and entertainment. What is infotainment data as it relates to vehicles, modern vehicles?
So it's a generic term, which more or less means the thing that's in the middle of the dashboard with the screen on it. A lot of manufacturing system.
And what about GPS as it relates to vehicles on the road, on the common roadways of the country?
GPS is a pretty fundamental part of vehicle data as a whole at this point, and we run into it in a lot of different places. We see GPS data from infotainment systems, so we're analyzing that data. Most of that's GPS based. I do a lot of heavy truck work, and almost every heavy truck has some kind of GPS system in it for the fleets to track them. So we're analyzing that as part of data. And then the last area would be when we conduct testing, any kind of research, we're generally going to put our own GPS systems on vehicles so we can study that data. So analyzing GPS is a regular part of my job.
GPS, global, I'm going by memory, global positioning satellites?
Global positioning system.
System, got it. GPS is a mechanism to figure out where on Earth a certain item might be, whether it's this pin or an 18-wheel tractor trailer, correct?
That's correct.
Is there any difference inherently in the GPS mechanism that's installed in an infotainment center in a Toyota/Lexus, versus a heavy truck or a heavy vehicle that's on the road?
The core technology behind how it works is fundamentally the same.
What is instrumented testing as it relates to Toyotas and VCH testing and things of that nature? Can you explain that for the jurors?
Sure. What instrumented testing means is, let's say we want to study, let's say how accurate some data is that comes out of one of these vehicles. So we need an independent source of that information. So what we'll do is we'll equip a vehicle with one of these GPS data acquisition systems. Basically, we can drive the vehicle around and we know exactly where it is, how fast it's going, all these parameters. We can do some maneuvers with the vehicle. Then we can download the data that the vehicle stored. And now we can compare the two and say, okay, well, if we have really high confidence in our system, how accurate is the vehicle system? Because the reality is there's always some small errors in these vehicle systems. And in a lot of cases, what's important is quantifying that error.
So you're obviously familiar with GPS systems in many different platforms.
That's correct.
Okay. How many cases have you been a part of in terms of investigating and or analyzing infotainment center or infotainment system data?
Infotainment specifically, probably around 30.
And are you also familiar with engaging in some sort of analysis that's referred to as clock alignment?
Yes.
What is clock alignment?
Clock alignment would mean that anytime we have a timestamp in any set of data, a singular clock value, there's a good likelihood it's not to compare that to, preferably one that's more reliable, and then making the necessary adjustments so that time can be considered real time.
With clock alignment specifically?
Thousands over 1,000. That's a regular part of data analysis. Any data set that has a timestamp, it's normal. It's part of the analysis. It's really the first step is let's get that clock aligned. So it's something I'm doing regularly.
And how long have you worked for Delta V?
It'll be my 13-year anniversary next month, actually.
Okay. These things that you've just described that we've talked about for the last few minutes, these are all duties that you perform within the rubric of your employment as the director of engineering at Delta V, correct?
Correct.
Now let's shift gears real quick and talk about your education, training, and background that qualifies you to perform these duties that you just talked about.
I began my academic career. I got an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. I then went on and got a master's degree also in mechanical engineering from the same school. And then when I came out of school, I immediately started Delta V Forensic Engineering. In order to get an engineer license, I then require 4 years of work directly under the supervision of another licensed engineer. So then I completed that phase of work. And then in order to maintain my license, I have to complete continuing education every year in the field that I practice.
So you got both a Bachelor of Science, correct?
Correct, Bachelor of Science.
Did you mention the year that you got your Bachelor of Science?
2011.
And you have a Master's?
Correct.
In engineering?
That is correct.
And when did you secure that degree?
2013.
You just mentioned engaging in continuing education. What is continuation to the engineering field in your world?
So in the state that I'm licensed, in North Carolina, they define that really as any activity you're participating in that's keeping you abreast with the field, keeping you up to date with what's going on. So taking formal classes counts for continuing education, but also some of the other work that I do, like publishing research in peer-reviewed journals, also counts as continuing education.
Do you regularly attend symposiums or symposia, I guess is the right
Yes.
word? Have you attended symposia related to EDR research and training?
Yes.
How about advanced applications of heavy vehicle EDR data?
Correct. Yeah, I attend. There's a couple of regular conferences in our industry specifically tailored to EDRs as a whole for passenger vehicles and heavy trucks. I'm a regular attendee of those. I'm also a regular speaker at most of those. And I'm usually presenting some of the new research that we have for that year.
So not only do you attend, you actually teach.
Correct.
Have you attended data? I'm sorry, have you attended data? Have you attended events that deal with data, event data recording systems and event data recording system extraction?
Yes.
What about vehicle crash reconstruction?
Yes.
What about electronic control module imaging?
Yes.
What about data to traffic reconstruction that you routinely engage in, correct?
All that's accurate.
Licensed professional engineer, correct?
That's correct.
In North Carolina?
Correct.
You're also a certified IPC specialist?
Yes.
What is an IPC specialist?
IPC is an organization that offers certifications in basically soldering. I could say it in more technical ways, but it boils down to soldering. So as it relates to what I do, when we are recovering data from damaged EDRs at the chip level, that involves some really precise soldering work. And so IPC offers courses in how to do that at basically the highest level, and then they offer certifications for that.
Are you a member of the Society of Automotive Engineers?
I am, active member.
When you say an active member, is that a nationally recognized society for academic engineers?
Yes.
The teaching roles that you've held within organizations, have you been an instructor concerning accessing and interpreting heavy vehicle data event recorders?
I am. I'm currently an instructor of that course, which is offered through the Society of Automotive Engineers.
As a matter of fact, next week, are you going someplace to teach?
I am. I will be in Wisconsin next week teaching that very course.
Are you a member of any subcommittees within that organization, within the organization of the Society for Automotive Engineers?
I am. I am a voting member in the J2728. subcommittee, which is a subcommittee for event data recorders on trucks and buses.
Are you also a member of the National Association of Professional Reconstruction Specialists?
I am.
Does that require a certain level of education?
It does, and it requires, as far as I know, when I joined, sort of proof that you are active within the field of accident reconstruction.
That was my next question. It requires you to stay current on accident reconstruction issues, correct?
Correct.
Have you also authored peer-reviewed articles on within your field and
Yes.
subfield? Is it fair to say that you've authored or co-authored a number of peer-reviewed papers in the field of accident reconstruction specifically, as well as EDR data retrieval?
That's correct.
Have any of your peer-reviewed articles that you've either authored or co-authored specifically focused on Toyota vehicles?
Yes.
Can you name one, please?
Specifically, this year published a paper where we studied the effects of collision-induced power loss on the way data is recorded in Toyota systems. And that would include Lexus systems. Fundamentally, they're the same components. It's just a different brand on top.
In January 2025, did you co-author a publication entitled Simulation of Vehicle Speed Sensor Data for Use in Heavy Vehicle Event Data Recording Testing?
Mr. Jackson, you're going to have to repeat that.
Of course. Sorry. In January 2025, did you co-author a publication entitled Simulation of Vehicle Speed Sensor Data for Use in Heavy Vehicle Event Data Recorder Testing?
Yes, I was the lead author on that paper.
When you're dealing with retrieving data from a vehicle, an EDR, an event data recorder, Toyota paper, whatever it might be, and that's a term of art, Toyota paper, correct?
Sure.
Does it matter if the vehicle is a heavy vehicle, a small vehicle, a passenger vehicle, a moped, or a skateboard if they happen to have an infotainment center on it?
There are differences, of course, between the data that comes out of passenger vehicles and the data that comes out of heavy trucks. But there are also a lot of Ford vehicle speed. They all have accelerator pedals. They all have brake pedals. So a lot of the core data we're analyzing is very similar.
In January 2020, did you co-author a publication entitled Chip and Board Level Digital Forensics of Cummins Heavy Vehicle Data Event Recorders?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And what was the fundamental, without getting into the granular details, the fundamental aspect of that paper?
So in that research, we introduced a new technique for getting data out of damaged modules. So, you know, they're either burned, they've been submerged in the water, they're crushed physically from impact. We demonstrated a new method to be able to get data less invasively, but still at the chip level. And we also demonstrated that we could translate that data from the chips outside of the software that was provided. So you could use the software and get the data that way. We demonstrated we could basically do it ourselves if we wanted to.
Mr. DeSogra, have you been qualified in other courts to testify as an expert in the area of accident reconstruction, EDR data retrieval?
Yes.
How many times?
Once.
When was that?
In New York.
You were deemed qualified as an expert in that court in this field that you're talking about today.
Specifically with as it relates to data, yes.
I want to talk a little bit about what you were asked to do in this case. We asked to undertake a review of certain work performed by a person by the name of Shannon Burgess with Aperture LLC.
Yes.
Are you familiar with Aperture?
Yes.
Before you were asked to undertake that review, were you familiar with Aperture?
Yes.
Were you familiar specifically with Shannon Burgess?
Yes.
Were you asked to engage in any original analysis in this case?
All of my analysis is fundamentally based on all of the data and the numbers provided in the Aperture reports. So more or less the answer to your question is no.
So you were asked specifically to give the court and the jurors clarity on data that Shannon Burgess had analyzed and provided a report about, correct?
Correct.
And that dealt with data obtained from Miss Reed's SUV, Karen Reed's SUV, correct?
Correct.
I have a question. Who is Kelly Denver? Does anybody know who Kelly Denver is? The defense noticed Commonwealth's motion for reciprocal data. Hank just won't quit. The defense noticed that it intends to call Kelly Denver as a witness in their case. The Commonwealth moves pursuant to Mass R. Crim 14 for all written communications, including prior inconsistent statements, and a summary of all oral communications made to any member of the defense team. What the heck? What the heck? So they have to go back and remember everything she's ever said to them? Like every word they've ever spoken to this woman. This is another one. Commonwealth's motion to preclude inadmissible hearsay. The defense noticed that it intends to call 4 individuals who have phone numbers associated with a federally protected and confidential series of text messages from Michael Proctor's personal cell phone. How are they federally protected? They were in the last trial. Oh, there's a footnote. While portions of federally protected text messages were revealed during Michael Proctor's testimony during the first trial, the records remain subject to protective orders of the Norfolk Superior Court and United States District Court for the District of Massachusetts. The defense intends to offer the communication of 9 individuals, only 3 of whom had partial contact names saved within Michael Proctor's personal cell phone, for the substantive truth of those statements. Of note, the confidential record indicates that there were a total of 38,707 text messages exchanged within this group, beginning on October 18th, 2021 and ending August 31st, 2022. The defense seeks to introduce a limited portion of text messages attributed to being exchanged by 9 individuals that occurred over 3 years ago. Preliminarily, it is the defendant's burden to satisfy the requirement of authenticating these communications by producing sufficient evidence to support a finding that the communication is what the defense claims it to be. The defense must not only establish that the communication was authored by the witness on the stand, but also the statements of others in the group, including Michael Proctor. This will require the judge to determine relevance and admissibility of each communication. I'm not reading this whole thing. Oh my God. Oh my God. He doesn't want Proctor's text to come out in this trial. That's what's happening here. We're going to have to do, I don't know how long it would take to do Trooper Paul and Trooper Proctor, but we're going to have to do both of those. For my members that did not watch the first trial, we are going to have to do both of those. This Sunday, members only, we're doing Trooper Paul. But we will get around to Proctor at some point, too. Oh, it's Kelly Deaver, and she's on the Canton Police Department. Why do they have to remember every oral conversation they ever had with her? That's ridiculous. Of course, it's ridiculous. It's Brennan.
Did you, in fact, review Shannon Burgess's report summarizing his findings and conclusions regarding clock drift? That report was dated in January of 2025.
Yes.
And what did you do in that regard?
I analyzed the methods that Mr. Burgess proposed for aligning the clocks in that report.
Were you also asked at some point to review Judson Welcher's report and PowerPoint presentation regarding the timing of the text stream event known as 1162-2, 1162-2.
Yes.
Did you determine whether Dr. Welcher had based his report on Shannon Burgess's analysis?
Yes.
Before we get into that, I want to ask you a couple of questions about tabular. When I say text stream event, have you ever heard that called a trigger event?
Yes.
Are those sort of synonymous?
The event, in order to be generated, has to be triggered by something. So, yes.
You became aware in your analysis, I'm assuming, that Dr. Welcher reported a trigger event at a particular time or span of time, correct?
Correct.
What span of time was that? I should say, what time was that?
For which event?
For the 1162-2 event, sorry.
Do you mind if I reference the slide? Because I don't have the number committed.
With the court's
to
permission.
Go ahead.
Do you have a copy of it in front of you?
I do, Your Honor. So the original analysis places event 1162-2 ending at 12:31:43 a.m.
Now, Dr. Welcher, and this is what I want to talk about for just a quick second. Dr. Welcher indicated that the trigger event began at 12:31:38, correct?
I believe so.
That would suggest that a trigger event lasts 5 seconds, 12:31:38 to 12:31:43, correct?
Objection.
Sustained is to form.
Let me ask you this. Does a trigger event or does a text stream event last 5 seconds or 10 seconds?
The trigger is a singular point in time.
That's my question.
Oh.
All right, so if we're thinking about a trigger event, it's like that clap, snap, right? It's a point in time, not a series of, not a time span, correct?
Yeah, because they went to the wrong address. Well, they were dispatched to the wrong address. They were dispatched to 32, not 34, right? Was she the dispatch operator? That's why they want to talk to her? Well, yeah, it makes sense because nobody talked to her last time, right? Nobody knew why they were dispatched to the wrong house, and that was just assumed to be part of the cover-up, I think.
It's a singular point, correct?
Okay. Does a trigger event or a text stream event cause a recording to bookend the trigger event itself?
Yes.
Explain that for the jurors so that we're very clear about that.
Sure. So when an event is triggered, what we end up with is some data from before the event was triggered and some data from after the event was triggered. The way it does that is it's kind of always recording. And as soon as it sees a trigger, it says, aha, and it goes and it grabs the previous 5 seconds. That number can vary. It can be more or less than 5, but for the specific trigger we're talking about, it grabs the previous 5 seconds of data, and then it keeps recording for an additional 5 seconds, and that completes its recording phase.
Right. So if Dr. Welcher indicated that the text stream event, the trigger, was at 12:31:38, would it be accurate if he said that trigger ended at 12:31:43?
Objection.
That's only
Sustained
5.
is to form.
That's only 5 seconds. I thought it was 5 seconds before and 5 seconds after
Is
the
there any,
event.
if a trigger event is one point in time, one snap in time, would it be accurate to say that the trigger event itself lasted 5 seconds and ended 5 seconds later?
It wouldn't be accurate to say the trigger lasted that long.
That's my question.
The event lasts that long, but the trigger is only one point within the event.
The recording lasts that long,
Right.
correct?
Correct.
So in other words, it captures, or does it? Let me ask you this. Does it capture 5 seconds before and 5 seconds after? But the trigger event is the singular point right in the middle.
That's correct.
Okay.
So why is it only 5 seconds long then? Shouldn't it be 10 seconds? I'm confused.
If we were to calculate the window between the trigger event or the text stream event and a lock event on John O'Keefe's phone, you analyzed both, correct? Or you reviewed both, correct?
Correct.
Would you calculate from the point of the trigger, would you calculate from 12:31:38, that point in time? I'm using the tip of my pen to represent the point. At 12:31:38, or would you calculate it from 12:31:43?
Customarily, when we're doing any analysis, we're referencing everything off of the trigger. That's the normal way. Everything in the Aperture reports was referenced off of the end of the event. So
Of the recording event,
of the recording event.
not
So-
the trigger.
Correct. And I didn't correct that. I just went with that convention for all of the analysis I did.
But you noted it, correct?
Correct.
And you noted that that would be 5 seconds inaccurate. I'll withdraw it. I'll ask it a different way.
I'm so confused.
What would be the effect of timing if you were to start at the trigger event, 12:31:38, versus timing the event if you were to start at 12:31:43?
There'd be-
And if, in fact, there was a lock event, which you reviewed, at 12:32:09, how long would the actual window be from the trigger event to 12:32:09?
It would be larger by 5 seconds, approximately.
So it would actually be 31 seconds, correct? Did I do my math right?
You did.
But the offsets that you identified, when you applied the potential offsets identified by Mr. Burgess to the text stream event at 1162-2, what opinions or conclusions did you come to with regard to that analysis or that question?
Sustained, ask him to.
Did you apply the potential offsets identified by Mr. Burgess in his January 2025 report to the text stream event 1162-2?
Yes.
Did you also apply Dr. Welcher's analysis based on that same Shannon Burgess analysis to reach an opinion or a conclusion?
Yes.
And what was your opinion or conclusion with regard to that event and the timing following that event?
Based on all of the data in those two original reports, regardless of what adjustment is made or which 2 points are used to try to correct the clock, the phone lock event always occurs after the end of the event, using their convention of referencing off the end of the event, not the trigger, but it always occurs after.
And that was based on Shannon Burgess's January 2025 report, correct?
Correct.
Sustained.
What was that based on? Differentiate. Which report are you just now talking about?
I'm talking about the January report.
Now, did Mr. Burgess, were you supplied with a supplemental report by Mr. Burgess?
Yes, I was.
When was that?
Slightly after he issued it, but I don't know the exact date.
Say
It
that again?
was issued on, his report was dated May 8th, and I think I was provided it a couple days after that. I don't
Okay.
remember the exact date.
So after, well, do you know when this trial started?
No, I don't know the exact date.
I know you're not watching the trial, but it was in the middle of this trial, correct?
Sustained.
I'll ask a different question. With regard to the original report, the January 2025 report, was there any circumstance in which Mr. Burgess and Mr. Welcher could conclude that the lock event on John O'Keefe's phone, that lock event, occurred before the trigger event?
Objection.
Sustained. Ask it differently, Mr. Justice.
What is your opinion about whether or not there was any analysis done by Mr. Burgess or Mr. Welcher that put the lock event occurring before the trigger?
Objection.
Sustained.
Come
Let
on,
me
Amy,
approach Your Honor.
do this. You can do it. You can do it. He's trying to prove that after the triggering event on the car, John O'Keefe was still able to lock his phone. So he didn't get hit in that triggering event by the car. He was physically able to lock his phone. Okay, while we have a minute, I just want to say one thing. I know that people come and go because you guys have a life and you don't just sit here all day and watch trials. But please don't leave because I am biased for Karen Read, because everybody's opinion is valid, and if you think she did it, that's fine. I don't care. So please don't feel like you aren't welcome here if you think that she's guilty, because that's not the way I want to run my channels. So if you disagree, feel free to say so.
Yeah, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you. Was there any circumstance based on your review that if the text stream event occurred at 12:31:38, that there's any circumstance that the lock Did you create a PowerPoint for Claire in March of 2025?
Yes,
Did you provide?
I did.
What was the purpose of creating the PowerPoint?
The purpose of the PowerPoint was really to take a bunch of different data elements that were kind of placed throughout Mr. Burgess's report and Dr. Welcher's report in PowerPoint, and compile them into a single source, a single table, essentially, to show as clearly as possible what the conclusions would be if we look at the data as a whole.
When you created that PowerPoint presentation, did you create it with the intention of providing it defense, which would then be provided to the Commonwealth?
Yes.
Are you aware of whether or not that was disclosed to the Commonwealth as part of the normal? Following your presentation of the PowerPoint to us, at some point, did you receive from Mr. Burgess an amended report, an amended PowerPoint?
I received an amended PowerPoint by Mr. Burgess, not from him, though, from you.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Did that report, or did that PowerPoint, however you want to put it, markedly, was it any different than his January 2025 report?
Yes.
did you note any conclusions? Did you note the conclusions that he came to in January 2025? Going back to the original report,
Yes.
did you note conclusions and opinions that he came to in May of 2025?
Yes.
Were those two things different?
Sustained.
Were the conclusions, not his opinions, were his conclusions different?
Sustained.
Was there any difference in the two reports?
There was.
Tell me the differences.
In the first report, Mr. Burgess did some of the calculations that are necessary to correct or adjust the times based on certain approaches, but never went through the final step of applying those calculations to the times and coming up with a final time. In the supplemental report, he then essentially took that analysis to the end. He approached it in a new way, a different way than he had previously laid out in the first report, but then he also took it all the way to the end by applying those calculations to the times.
What were the main differences? Explain for the court and for the jurors, what were the main differences that he changed in the May 2025 report?
Contrasting it with the original
Correct.
report. In
Right.
the original report, he laid out some methodologies for correcting the clock using phone calls that were shared between the vehicle and Mr. O'Keefe's phone. And in the supplemental report, he moved away from the phone call analysis and moved to attempting to align the clocks using a shared maneuver between the vehicle and the phone.
What was the shared maneuver?
It was a 3-point turn.
Was that the same analysis that he had in January 2025?
He did not have that analysis in the January 2025 report.
Thank you. Based on the new information in the May 2025 report, what was the effect, as you see it, regarding the possible scenarios?
So I did the exact same process I did using the supplemental report as I did on the first report. And when I ran all those numbers and those calculations, it turned out there are now some scenarios in which the phone lock occurs after the end of the event. There's some scenarios where the phone lock occurs simultaneously, like literally at the same second. And there are some scenarios where it occurs before. So now there's a range.
So Mr. Burgess's report, his new report, his amended report, widened that gap to allow him to opine that there were scenarios that occurred after the phone lock event, correct?
Objection.
The objection is sustained.
Did you prepare a PowerPoint presentation in furtherance of clarifying Mr. Burgess's analysis?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you seek to clarify Mr. Burgess's analysis?
Objection.
Sustained.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes.
May I?
Yes.
Did you prepare a PowerPoint presentation in furtherance of your analysis?
Yes.
What was the reason and what was the purpose for your PowerPoint presentation?
I needed to include in my analysis the approach and the conclusions from the supplemental report by Mr. Burgess.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
If you wouldn't mind taking a look at that document, it's a multi-page document I just handed you, and just flip through it and let me know once you've familiarized yourself with it. What is that document?
This is a printout of the PowerPoint presentation that I prepared.
Is it true and accurate?
Yes,
And it's complete?
it appears to be.
Your Honor, I would move for its admission, please.
I have no objection.
May I have that back for me just a quick second?
208. Thank you.
Your Honor, permission to display the PowerPoint presentation?
Okay.
Mr. DeSogra, can you still see with the lights off sufficient to see what's on the screen and what's in front of you?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recognize what's on the screen?
Yes,
What is that?
that is the title page of the PowerPoint that I prepared.
And what is how would you describe the PowerPoint?
So this PowerPoint is largely identical to the first PowerPoint I prepared in that it seeks to take all of the different approaches between the initial Burgess report, the supplemental Burgess report, and Dr. Welcher's report, lay out all of those approaches in one kind of coherent fashion so we can look at what conclusions we can draw from all of that data.
With court's permission, can we go to slide 2?
Yes. Mr. Jackson, you can just use this PowerPoint. It's in evidence. You don't have to ask slide to slide.
Thank you, Your Honor. Taking a look at this next slide, what is this? What are we looking at?
This is a slide from Dr. Welcher's presentation that I was provided. Specifically, this is his slide number 33.
And what does it show?
This is where he introduces the first, acknowledgement that there's a difference between the time that Aperture calculated for the end of event 1162-2 and the lock event on Mr. O'Keefe's cell phone.
Is there anything in this slide that you disagree with in Mr. Welcher's presentation that you disagree with? It's up on the...
I added the 2 green boxes and the text, the word after. That's not Dr. Welcher's. And I added that because it's stated here that the event occurred within 26 seconds. But if we do the math, and he actually does the math, he really means after. It means the phone lock event occurred 26 seconds after the end of the vehicle event as calculated.
No, I'm going to allow it.
The phone interaction happened how many seconds after the text stream event?
Based on this slide, 26 seconds.
Thank you. And the text stream event that we're talking about is what number?
1162-2.
And this slide, other than the green, is this slide or the portion of the slide that we're looking at, other than what you've described, is this directly from Mr. Welcher's own analysis or his PowerPoint?
On the whole paragraph, the line, and the words after. Those are my additions.
Let's go to the next slide. Can you tell us what this is?
This is more or less a repeat of what's on the first slide, but just shown with a little more focus. The first slide is a little busy. So
Yeah, it is.
I'm sorry, Mr. DeSogra, did you create this or is this from Dr. Welcher's report?
I created everything on this slide apart from in the top right. That came from Dr. Welcher's slide 33.
Although you created the slide, where's the data coming from for this slide?
All of the data on this slide and all of my subsequent slides comes from the Aperture reports collectively, either Dr. Welcher's report or slides, or Mr. Burgess's first and second reports.
What did their analysis reveal for Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
So in their analysis, in Aperture's analysis, they report the Lexus event 1162.2 ends at 12:31:43. And they also report there's a phone lock at 12:32:09. So if we just simply take the difference in those two times, we get 26 seconds.
If you were to add the 5 seconds back to 12:31:38, which is the actual trigger event, what would you come up with?
31 seconds.
Which of the two, in your expert opinion, which of those two numbers is more accurate as it relates to the trigger event?
If we wanted to conduct the analysis relative to the trigger, it would be better to use the actual trigger time. However, as long as we're consistent through the analysis, it's not entirely wrong to use the end. It would be wrong if I suddenly switched up and started talking about this relative to the trigger event, but they present it as the end of the event. So I conduct the rest of my analysis using that convention.
Is another word for the end of the event the end of the recording?
End of the recording. Yeah. When I say event, what I mean by that is the data event, the data recording event.
But the trigger event itself, 12:31:38.
Correct.
Okay. Did you put a name on this gap, if you will, this time frame?
Yes, I did. For the sake of the rest of the analysis that I'm going to do, I thought it would be helpful to just refer to this difference in time as John's interaction window.
And that refers directly to the interaction with the phone, the human interaction of locking the phone.
The 12:32:09 lock.
Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. What does this slide show us?
So this here, what I'm doing is I'm kind of laying out the bounds of what I mean in John's interaction window, which should make, we have a lot of numbers to go through here. And so this should give us a very easy metric for kind of determining whether we have an event before or after. So what I mean by that is when we calculate John's interaction window, if that number comes out and is positive, that means the phone interaction occurs after the end of the vehicle event. And if we calculate John's interaction window and that number becomes a negative value, then that means the phone interaction occurs before. So now we have just a convention we can use really quickly to say, is it positive or is it negative? And we can maybe spare ourselves some of the math with 1,000 numbers.
So positive means what? One more time.
Positive, John's interaction window positive means the phone lock occurs after the end of vehicle event 1162-2.
Got it. Let's go to the next slide, please.
These slides are
What does this slide show us?
follow.
So what I'm saying here, I'm kind of laying the foundation for why we're going to even do this. Why do we need to start doing math on these clocks? So fundamentally, the phone, Mr. O'Keefe's phone, and the vehicle, Mr. Reed's vehicle, they're separate clocks. And it's very unlikely that they're going to be aligned perfectly in time. Right? If I compared my watch to your watch, it would probably be off. And that's the same case for any two independent clock sources. So Aperture, in their collective reports, propose a number of different ways in which that can be corrected. So I'm going to go through all of those ways that Aperture has proposed and show if we align the clocks based on how they laid out, does John's interaction window stay positive or does it ever become negative? Where does it end up when we run all those analyses? Or another way to put it is, does the phone interaction always occur after the end of the vehicle event?
And what did you determine?
Based on the initial reports,
Yes.
the phone interaction always occurs after the end of the vehicle event.
Did all of the information that's on this slide come from the same source or multiple sources, meaning Mr. Burgess and Dr. Welcher?
In the PowerPoint as a whole, all the information comes from the Aperture reports collectively
Okay.
from Dr. Welcher and Mr. Burgess.
Did Mr. Burgess make any adjustments from his original report to his subsequent report in May of 2025?
Yes.
Let's go to slide 6, please. Tell me about this slide.
Yeah, so this is the first adjustment we're going to talk about and this one comes from Mr. Burgess's original report. And to summarize this adjustment, this is a key on timing adjustment. And we're going to show that the key on, the actual turning of the vehicle on, occurs about 3 seconds before that time gets registered in the infotainment. So the time we see is basically stale by 3 seconds.
We're all familiar with how computers turn on. When you say key on, do you mean a physical key, or could it be the push button to turn the car on?
In this case, it's a button. I refer to key on because generally that event is considered the key on in vehicle parlance, regardless of whether there's a physical key or it's a push button.
So those 3 seconds mean what? What's the difference between pushing that button and the 3 seconds later that you just described?
It means that when we're trying to use the timestamps that were recovered from the infotainment system that show when the vehicle was keyed on or turned on, that the vehicle was actually or likely turned on 3 seconds before that.
Do you know where the 3 second conclusion came from in Mr. Burgess's report?
That came from the testing that Aperture conducted with the exemplar Lexus that they purchased.
Was there anything in the report that indicated testing, this type of exact testing on Miss Reed's actual Lexus?
No.
Do you have an opinion as to whether or not all Lexuses, at least of this make and model and year, would have the exact same 3 second delay? Or could that be different?
It could be different in their testing. In their testing, they only tested one exemplar vehicle. So I think there was a solid foundation that the exemplar that was used exhibited this 3 second delay. It was a very close match in terms of part numbers and software versions to Ms. Reed's Lexus, but without any kind of testing of, let's say, a second vehicle, a second exemplar, we wouldn't know, we wouldn't have any basis to say it must be 3. We could test a second vehicle and it could be 5. So we say, well, there's a delay, but it varies vehicle to vehicle. They could have tested a second vehicle and found it's also 3. And then you start to build some confidence that maybe it is 3 across every vehicle. But with only testing one and not testing the subject vehicle, it is difficult to say with absolute certainty it would be 3 seconds.
What is your opinion about best practices with regard to trying to create this gap for purposes of coming to an opinion or an analysis?
So because we don't know whether or not this specifically would apply to Ms. Reed's vehicle, the best way to conduct that analysis would be to do the entire thing with the key switch adjustment at 3 seconds. Because if we're going to use a value, 3 is the most reasonable one because that's the one shown in testing. But we should also do the entire analysis without it in case we feel that that's the most appropriate. So in fact, that's what I do and will show is I ran the analysis both ways, with and without, to be as conservative as possible.
Did your review of Mr. Burgess's report indicate that he ran the analysis both ways?
He did not.
Let's go to slide 7. What are we looking at here?
This is an excerpt from Mr. Burgess's original report, his page 28 and his page, there's a screenshot also from his page 30 at the bottom. And this is where he states in that report that when they were doing the testing with the exemplar, they observed across 4 different key-on cycles this 3 second difference. So what I mean by that is they had a video camera in the car that had a timer on it. And so in the video, you can see the button pressed. So in their testing, for example, they pressed the button at 21:48:05, and that's sort of nailed down. When they went back and downloaded the data from the infotainment, the key on was logged in the infotainment as 21:48:08. So there's the 3 seconds. That's where they're getting that from. And that's what he states highlighted in red there. It's a little hard to read, but it basically says the average across 4 runs was 3 seconds.
The 3-second delay, was that actually in his report?
This is the
I guess what I'm asking, it was an artful question. The portion to the left, is that his report or your report?
That is his report. Everything on the left-hand side of the slide comes from Mr. Burgess's report.
So the 3-second delay was noted in his report.
It was noted.
Did he apply the 3 seconds in his analysis?
He did not.
Did he indicate in his report why he ignored that 3-second delay?
He did not.
Sustained as to that question.
I'll rephrase it.
Strike the answer.
Did he indicate in his report the reason that he did not apply the 3-second correction?
He did not.
When you do apply the 3-second correction, what do you come up with as it relates to the 26 seconds from the end of the recording?
So the positive 26-second window, if we only apply the 3-second key on, grows to positive 29 seconds.
If you apply the same 3 seconds to the trigger event time, now what does the gap?
That gap would grow to a positive 34 seconds.
Between the trigger event and what?
The phone lock.
In your opinion, was it best practice to not account for that 3-second?
Because they're trying to prove that John O'Keefe was able to physically lock his phone after the supposed contact with the car, which would prove that he was still alive. So for the defense, it would prove that he didn't get hit by a car because he's still using his phone afterwards, after the triggering event, which the Commonwealth is saying was him getting hit by a car. But if he's hit by a car and unconscious in the snow, then how is he using his phone later?
Delay between the on switch and the data coming on?
Sustained, ask you to.
What, in your opinion, would be the best practice in terms of this 3 seconds that was noted
All right,
in the example?
come on.
The best practice would be to run the analysis with that adjustment included and without that adjustment included. As stated, without testing of an additional vehicle, we really don't know if the 3 seconds is just a specific behavior of that exemplar or if it's representative of all Lexuses of this type.
Let's go to slide 8, please. Tell us what we're looking at in this slide.
So now we're going to get into the next adjustments. That first adjustment we just talked about was really a vehicle-to-vehicle adjustment. We haven't talked about the phone yet. We're going to get into the phone now and talk about aligning that. But we had to get through the internal adjustment that has to get done first. Now we're going to look on the subsequent slides here at all of the different ways the Aperture reports compared the vehicle to Mr. O'Keefe's phone.
Is there any additional adjustment that you believe should be made?
The Aperture reports lay out 2 methodologies for adjusting. There is a methodology based on phone calls, and there's a methodology based on the 3-point turn.
And where did you get that information from?
From the Aperture reports.
In Mr. Burgess's original report, I'm differentiating, the January report, Which did he use to determine his determination of the clock skew?
In his initial January report, he never actually takes the calculation to the end by applying the differences in times to the calculated time for 1162-2, but he does do the math, which I'll show, for the differences on these phone calls.
In terms of Dr. Welcher's report, did he identify a GPS point of 154 at all?
Yes.
How did he describe that GPS data point?
He describes in his initial PowerPoint slides as 0.154 aligning with the end of vehicle event 1162-1, talking about a different event now. This is the 3-point turn event. So he uses that as an anchor point.
And that anchor point, you said, was the end of the text stream event, or the end of the recording of that text stream event.
Correct. The Aperture reports consistently reference everything from the end of the events.
Let's go to slide 9, please. What are we looking at here?
On the left is an excerpt of page 33 from Mr. Burgess's initial report. And what he shows here is he has identified 7 call logs that exist both in the infotainment from Ms. Reed's Lexus and in Mr. O'Keefe's phone. He puts them in a table form. Then he actually goes on and calculates the difference between those 2 times. So that's what I meant by he sort of does the math. He makes my job a little easier, and the numbers are already there. He just never applies these to any of the times. So that's where I step in and say, if I take that third column that he lays out, those are in seconds. If I apply those seconds, that adjustment to 12:31:43, where do we end up with John's interaction window in those times?
What did you conclude in terms of finishing the work?
Sure, I did all of them. And so I highlight on this particular slide, I just highlighted the very first one he has in here. In that case, he identified that Mr. O'Keefe's phone was 2 seconds slow relative to the infotainment system. So if we apply only that adjustment, then John's interaction window becomes positive 28 seconds.
Did Mr. Burgess apply all of the potential offsets?
He didn't apply any of the offsets. He calculated all of them, but he didn't apply any of them.
Did you ultimately apply all of the offsets?
Yes, I did.
And what did you determine?
Regardless of which offset you apply, John's interaction window, positive. The number changes, but it remains positive.
Let's take a look at those one at a time if we can. Let's have the next slide.
Even with the change, it's still after the event.
So on this slide, I just took the other end of the spectrum. There's a large range in values in this table. He doesn't actually, Mr. Burgess doesn't show the sign conventions on here, but actually—
What do you mean sign conventions?
Sign conventions, he doesn't show when he calculates the difference, whether it's positive or negative. All the numbers in the table don't have a sign, don't have a plus or minus in front of them, but there's an implication. Some of them are plus, some of them are minus. So the first one that we just looked at showed we had 2 seconds slow. There's another value in here that's on the other end of that. It shows that Mr. O'Keefe's phone is 21 seconds fast now relative to the infotainment. So that's the largest value in the table we could take that would bring John's interaction window down now. And so if we apply just that adjustment, John's interaction window becomes a positive 5.
Take a look at slide 11, if we could, please. What are we looking at here?
So I've shifted now from the phone calls, and now we're going to talk about the 3-point turn alignment. In the 3-point turn alignment is first presented in Dr. Welcher's slide, his presentation here. And in this, he doesn't say it explicitly, but he provides some math on the screen, which is a little hard to read. but he puts some math on the screen that shows he's aligning this 0.154 from Mr. O'Keefe's phone to the end of event 1162-1. This is the prior event. This is a 3-point turn. And so he aligns, he says this is basically how you align it. And he doesn't do the math. Again, he lays out that he says a 19.2 second difference. I actually just adjusted that to 20, which is the most conservative way to interpret that. I don't think we have the accuracy here to talk about tenths of a second. Nevertheless, I just rounded that up to 20. And when we apply that 20 seconds to our event 1162-2, then John's interaction window becomes +6. That's just applying this. We're not combining anything. We're just applying the shown in this slide.
And that positive interaction window, is that calculated based on information directly from Dr. Welch's report?
Yes.
Let's go to slide 12.
You know what I was
What are we looking
expecting?
at here? What is this table?
I was expecting to see, like on true crime shows where they do like animatics, where they put like where this person was standing and that person was standing and the direction the gun was shooting, and like on true crime shows they do these animatics where they show where everybody was standing and what was what. Like, I thought I was going to get to see something like that. Like, how could this have happened? Where the car backed up, where it hit him, how it hit him. Like, I didn't know we were going to get charts with numbers and stuff. This tells me nothing. That's exactly, they can't. Because we don't know. Like Welcher kept saying, I can't figure out the speed of the car because I don't know the point of impact. Nobody knows the point of impact. We don't even know if there was an impact. Nobody saw anything. That's reasonable doubt. This case should have never, ever gone to a jury. Never. Yeah, I know it's not TV. But no, I'm talking about true crime shows. I'm not talking about like Criminal Minds or CSI or NCIS. I'm not talking about Bones either. I'm talking about true crime shows where they put together like an animatic for court. I'm talking about true crime shows.
This is a table I made. We've talked about a lot of different approaches to how these clocks can be aligned, different variables. So I tried to summarize them in one table, put them all together, because some of them we can combine. We can combine the key on with either a phone call or a 3-point turn. So I put all the possible combinations, all of them, without key switch, calculated John's interaction window for all valid combinations from the aperture reports. And when we do that, the result is that regardless of what adjustment we make, all of the numbers are positive, meaning regardless of what adjustment we make, the phone lock event always occurs after the end of event 1162-2.
Did Mr. Burgess, in your review of his report in January of 2025, did he ever undertake all possible offset calculations?
No.
In his May 2025 report, did he undertake all possible offset calculations?
No.
What is your opinion in terms of best practices regarding calculations of this sort?
I think if there's sufficient data, if there's testing or research or literature that in a specific case supports there is a best path or a best method, then we should use that. In this case, I don't think there is a best practice. There isn't any literature I'm aware of that would specify exactly the best path to align all of these. So in the absence of any external data to support one path, the most valid approach is to look at all of them as a whole and then draw a conclusion of the totality of that data rather than cherry picking a single point.
Can you testify to reasonable scientific certainty whether all potential offsets that were described in Aperture's original report, January of 2025, result in a positive interaction window?
Yes.
And what is that opinion?
Regardless of what adjustment or combination of adjustments we make from the original reports, John's interaction window remains positive.
Does the positive interaction window mean the lock event occurred after or before the text stream event?
It means the lock event occurs after the end of the text stream event, 1162-2.
You've already indicated that you received a second report, May of 2025, correct?
That's correct.
In that report, is there the same clock skew alignment or a different clock skew alignment that Mr. Burgess now undertakes?
Mr. Burgess undertakes a different alignment in that report.
Let's go to slide 13. Describe what we're looking at in this slide.
So what I have here on the left is a screenshot of page 42 from Mr. Burgess's supplemental report. And so now he's done two things new here. He's identified a new method for aligning the data based on the 3-point turn. So now he's kind of following where Dr. Welcher started, but he's approaching it a little differently. And secondly, he is now calculating the actual time. He's doing the difference calculation and he's applying that to the time. So now he's taking the calculation all the way through, which is a little different from the prior reports. And so when he does that, he makes my job really easy because I didn't have to do really any math now. He comes up that there is a range now. So prior to this point, the original report by Mr. Burgess and Dr. Welcher reports all used discrete points in time, right? They sought to find an event that occurs at a singular second and another event at a singular second and align based on that. This is a little bit of a departure from that approach. Mr. Burgess is now using a range of times, a range of uncertainty. He basically turn data from the phone, and the 3-point turn data in 1162-1 cannot be precisely aligned down to a single point. Rather, they overlap in this range of seconds. And so he then says that that range must be applied. So now we have to apply a range. And what we end up with is 9 possible values. So it kind of looks like one conclusion, but really there's 9 conclusions on this slide. And so if we just applying the math he has in the supplemental report, John's interaction window now has a range of 9 possible values. And that range spans from +5 now to -3. So we have 5 positive values. We have 1 value that's 0, and the 0 would mean it's simultaneous. And then we have 3 negative values.
Does Mr. Burgess indicate in his report that any one of those values is more likely than any of the other values?
He does not provide any data or analysis to support one point being preferential over the other 8.
And are there more or fewer positive results in his analysis than negative?
There are more positive numbers in that range of 9 than there are negative numbers.
Does Mr. Burgess's new data indicate anything about Dr. Welcher's analysis about the GPS data point 154 being at the end of the 3-point turn?
He opines in that aligning the 3-point turn on a singular point is not, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't know the exact way he states it, but not the preferred method.
Is Mr. Burgess's analysis consistent or inconsistent with Mr. Welcher's determination that GPS point 154 was at the end of the text stream event?
Objection.
Sustained.
Does Mr. Burgess, in his report, indicate whether he agrees or disagrees with Dr. Welcher's analysis?
I don't remember specifically.
You know, another thing, not saying grounds for objections it makes a jury think that they're playing around with semantics, because he'll say objection and then Bev will look at him and say it another way, Mr. Jackson, and then I'll say it a different way, and then Brenda will say objection, and then she'll look at him and say it a different way, Mr. Jackson. It's the same question but different wording, and it sounds petty, and I don't like that. But I mean, I understand it, but the jury would understand it more if he would say speculation or hearsay or whatever it is, so that the jury would realize they're not being petty, they're asking the question incorrectly. I don't like the way she does that. I don't like it.
In your opinion, I asked you about Mr. Burgess's report. Now I'm going to ask you about your opinion. In your opinion, is this new offset any more likely or reasonable than any other offsets previously proposed by Mr. Burgess?
I don't think it is more or less likely. I think it is a valid approach, certainly. And so I think the results from the additional analysis should be included with the analysis of all of the results so far.
And none of those results are more or less likely than any of the others, correct?
Sustained.
Are any of the results, in your opinion, to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty, are any of the results any more or less likely than any of the others?
In my opinion, they're all equally weighted.
Did Mr. Burgess account for the 3-second offset that we talked about earlier in his May 2025 report, his new report?
I did not see any mention of that in his supplemental report, and certainly the 3 seconds isn't present in his math. I don't see it there.
Let's go on to slide 14, please.
I should send her one. I got plenty here I'm not using. Because Shadow won't use them. I can reprogram one and mail it to her.
Describe what we're looking at here in this table.
This is very similar to the table we looked at previously, where I look at all possible combinations. Now, however, I just have a lot more data points to show, so I've had to break the table into 2 tables. So we're going to look at this, and then we'll look at slide 15 next, which is the second table. I just couldn't cram 30 lines onto one slide.
Let's move to the next slide then. Is this a
So there's
continuation of
the
the
second half. So think of these as a singular table. I just had to split them up. If we head back to slide 14, we'll start there. So this slide, I'm not accounting for the key on, and that's the main difference between my 2 tables. Table 1, I'm not accounting for the 3-second key on. In table 2, I am.
When you say key on, you're talking about that 3-second delay.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
But again, I want to make sure we're thinking about this as a singular table, because that's where we'll draw our conclusions from. So the first lines of the table, we've already seen those. Those were in my original table. I haven't changed those. That's the same math that's been there. All I did was I added the 9 points now from Mr. Burgess's supplemental report using the range he shows. And so now we can see if we include that, now we get some positive numbers for John's interaction window. We get that 0 And again, the 0 would imply that the end of event 1162-2 is happening exactly at the same second as the phone lock. So it's kind of not on one side or the other. So I think it should be thought of as separate. And then we have 3 negative values, which would imply that phone lock occurs before the end of 1162-2.
And did you already mention the one that was simultaneous?
When John's interaction window is 0, correct?
0.
That would imply simultaneity.
All right, is this 14 or 15? It's 14. Let's move to 15.
I got
Now,
lost.
this is the continuation of that. Mentally, we'll just continue that same table?
Correct.
Okay.
Just a continuation. Imagine in your mind is just rows 16 to 30.
Okay.
And it's the same thing, same format, except for now we're just adding in that key on adjustment because again, I think the analysis should be run with and without it. And so now when we run this with the key on adjustment, we get 14 of these 15 are John's interaction window is positive to various degrees. And one of them, it's 0, again, simultaneous. And there are no negative values with.
Can we go to the next slide, 16, please? What are we looking at here?
This is the summary then of that table, kind of a verbal summary of the giant 30-line table now. And if we look at all of the possibilities from all of the Aperture reports collectively, then we can draw some pretty straightforward conclusions. 25 of those 30 possibilities result in interaction with the O'Keefe phone after the end of event 1162-2. Looking at all the possibilities, 2 of the 30 result in interaction where it's simultaneous. That's the 0s, they're present in both tables. And then looking at all 30, 3 of the 30 result in interaction with the phone before the end of event 1162-2.
Do you have an opinion as to which of these particular offsets that you've described, these 30 possibilities, should be applied in this case?
No.
Why is that?
Each of the approaches have their own individual strengths. Each of them have their own individual weaknesses, and they're published stands head and shoulders above another one of the methods. So I think the most fair way to present it is to look at, again, if we combine everything together, then we can draw some conclusions like this in terms of how many of the total result in one outcome or another.
Is every data point that we're looking at and that you've been talking
I'm not
about,
amazing.
are these all drawn directly from Aperture's reports?
That's correct. I have methods for aligning the clocks myself. All of the methods that comprise these 30 are from the Aperture reports themselves.
Based on your analysis of the Aperture, or your review of the Aperture analysis, is there any ability to say to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty that the text stream event occurred after the last physical interaction with John O'Keefe's phone?
Yes, there would be three out of the 30 possibilities would result in that.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty that it did happen after the text stream event?
Okay. Sustained.
Of the 30, what's the percentage of possible events that occurred, possible scenarios, I should say, wherein the text stream event occurred after the last interaction with John's phone? What's the percentage?
That's sustained.
You said it's 3 out of 30, correct?
Yes,
Is that 10%?
that is 10%.
Yeah, it's sustained and it's stricken.
What percentage is 3? Just do basic math for me. What is the percentage between 3 and 30?
Sustained.
If I told
What?
you hypothetically,
Do math for you? Why not?
I'm gonna see your sidebar for a second.
What's wrong with math? And why you can't do it? Why was that an objection?
of the totality of the possible scenarios, did you come to a conclusion that the vast majority, let me phrase that, did you come to a conclusion about the numbers as they relate to the positive interactions versus the negative? When I say positive versus negative, I'm talking about the phraseology that you used, phone interaction being in the negative side.
Yes.
And what were those?
Of the 30 possibilities, 25 of them, it's a positive. John's interaction window is positive for 25 of them.
And only 3 were negative?
Correct. Only 3 were of the 30 were negative.
Okay, we can take that slide down. Is there a data recorder on the Toyota SUV that we've been talking about, that 2021 Toyota SUV 570, that's designed to record impact?
Yes.
What is that? What is that mechanism?
The airbag control module,
The ACM?
ACM.
Did you look at that?
I was provided a copy of the download from the ACM.
What did the data recorder indicate, if anything, related to any impact on January 29th, 2022?
There were no recorded events whatsoever on the ACM.
Did the vehicle control history record whether there was any history of a collision on that car, ever?
No.
There
What
you go.
does the vehicle control history record specifically?
It records a lot of operational parameters about the vehicle. What I mean by that is it records things like what the driver is doing, for example, steering wheel angle, accelerator pedal position, whether the brake is being pressed. It also records what the vehicle is doing, for example, speed or the engine RPM or the accelerations of it.
Does the TechStream data event indicate that there's a, and I'm talking about very specifically the TechStream data, does that indicate whether or not there's a collision in the car?
No.
Does the TechStream data event mean that if you find a TechStream data event or a trigger event, does that mean that the airbags are deployed?
No.
Does it mean that the vehicle impacted with something solid?
No.
Does it mean that the vehicle impacted with a pedestrian?
No.
You reviewed the raw TechStream data associated with the entirety of Ms. Reed's vehicle, did you not?
Yes.
How many TechStream events or triggers were found on Ms. Reed's vehicle during the course of the 8-month period prior to January 29th?
So can you narrow that, Mr. Jackson?
Sure.
I object to the whole line.
And I need.
Oh, shut your face, Brennan. He objects to the whole line of questioning. Boo-hoo. Where is Aiden? Aiden said he was an alternate, which means that he'll probably get in there.
What did you find in terms of, I want to narrow this question to January 29th, 2022. What did you find in terms of any data regarding a collision?
Neither of the events that occurred on that date were triggered by a collision.
Thank you. May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
There's no collision. There was no collision. There was no collision. Just like they said in their. We object to your whole case. Objection, Your Honor. This is back for my case.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay. Jurors, we're going to take the morning recess. There's some things that we need to do with the lawyers. We'll have you come back to 12.
What do you need to do with the lawyer, woman? That's the lawyer's lawyer.
Can I see counsel at sidebar to save us some time, please?
To save us some time. How does it save us time? No. It doesn't. None of this saves us any time. On the right-hand side? He's usually on the left. It doesn't save us time. It saves you time. So you can get to the Cape faster for your long weekends. That's what it saves time for. You know, if you wanted to save time, you could have granted the JOA. We could be done now. Done. I don't see him. And the picture he did on Twitter, he was like pumping his fist, like I made it alternate. And somebody was like, why are you making a fist? Are you going to fight somebody? Oh my God. People can be so stupid. No, he's not going to fight anybody. He's like, yeah, I made it in. Stupid. Some days I wonder why I even wanted to be a YouTuber. I don't know. I've the people. Where? Oh, wait. Oh, I see him. He's in the very back. I see him. I don't know. The people that chat in my channel, at least, are nice people. I'm assuming my lurkers are nice people too. But I only hang out in channels where there's nice people. When they start getting to be rude and snarky and whatever, I don't hang out in those channels anymore. Or I just turn off chat when I watch them. But people on the internet, man, they think just because you're behind a screen, you can just say whatever you want. And I will admit, I did that at first. And then I thought, wait a minute. I wouldn't say that in somebody's face. So why am I saying it to them on the internet? And I think that's the thing. I think that people forget. Just because you're not face to face or behind a screen, it doesn't mean that you can't still hurt somebody's feelings, Yeah, I know. He's always doing that. That's just, victory. I like Aiden. I don't like all of his, and I've said this before, but I don't like I don't like the way he gets things done. Some of the ways he gets things done. Like, even his lives, like, I can only take so much. I'll start watching him and then I'm like, okay, I'm done. That's enough. That's enough Turtle Boy for now. He did another, I think it's another new one. Like, before the first trial, he did a video where he was backing up at 1 hour, and I results or whatever from the new crash reconstructionist. Welcher stuff, I guess. I don't know. I saw a thumbnail for it and I saw where it said new, and I know I watched the old one, so this one can't be new to me. I mean, that one, it can't be that one because that one's not new to me because I watched the old one. That was the very first Turtle Boy thing I ever saw. Let me see if I can find the thumbnail again. Oh, Court TV has a poll. Grade the prosecution's case against Karen Read, A, B, C, or F. 60% F, 25% C, 8% B, and 7% A. Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to search Turtle Boy to find it. Turtle Boy tests the theory at Fairview Road. One day ago, yeah. It's only 5 minutes long. If I'd known that, we could have watched it. But watch, as soon as I try to play it, they will be back. Oh well.
Members of the jury, Karen Read found John O'Keefe dead on the front lawn of the Boston Police Home.
Didn't mean to do that. Oh, it's a repost? Oh, okay.
But you're saying the distance is 87 feet, correct? 87 feet backwards, yes. So backwards, 24 miles an hour. Have you ever driven a vehicle backwards 24 miles an hour, sir? Yeah. Yes, I think I've driven this Lexus backwards 24 miles. No, you didn't. Have you ever driven a vehicle back 24 miles an hour at 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock in the morning? Probably not since I got out of high school. Have you ever done it in... What? This guy's trying to sound so cool. Like, oh, back in high school. So Collins.
It's him watching. Yeah. I don't know, Carla. You're probably allergic to something. I don't know if it was. Are you allergic? You probably are having an allergic reaction to something that you came in contact with. That sounds like an allergic reaction to it. I hate the morning breaks. They take forever. I swear this trial has the longest breaks. I am allergic to nature. I can sit down on the grass anywhere, any kind of grass, any kind of tree, everything I've ever been tested for. Now, the weird thing is, I'm not allergic to dust mites. 98% of the population is allergic to dust mites. I'm in the 2% that is not. And you know how everybody's allergic to like poison ivy and poison oak? I have no idea. I've never been exposed to it. Um, I I don't know if I'm allergic to bees. I've never been stung by a bee. But the fact that I'm allergic to everything, I'm terrified of bees because I have no idea. But if I'm not allergic to dust mites and everybody else, I have no idea. So if I see a bee, I run the other way. I've been stung by wasps lots of times and I'm not allergic to them. They just hurt like hell. One day, we were putting up our pool that is now just a giant frog pond in our backyard because I got sick and Travis didn't keep it up. Anyways, Travis and Kristen were in the backyard putting the pool up. And I don't know why I went out the front door for some reason. But I went out the front door and the dogs were wanting to go out too. And Travis didn't want them out there because he didn't want them like walking on the line or the pool and all that. So I went out the front door backwards to keep them in. You know, like I was backing up and, you know, going, no, stay in the house. And there was a wasp nest. Like we had a wreath on the door and there's a wasp nest inside the wreath, which I didn't know that. So I had I was opening the door, I had my back turned. So opening the door aggravated the wasps that I did not see because I was walking out backwards and they attacked. And I screamed bloody murder. It was awful. I don't know how many stings I got, but it was bad. And Travis and Kristen both came running around the side of the house. What? And I'm like, I got stung. There's one. They were just everywhere, swarming everywhere. And I was running around the front yard. Get them away. What kind of spider bites, though? Do you know? You're allergic to people? I What's the difference between toadstools and mushrooms? I thought they were the same thing, just different words. I have lived in Florida all my life, and Florida has spiders everywhere. I have been bit by a spider that I know of twice, and I did not feel the bite either time. Once was at Travis's house when he lived in Polk County when we were dating. What was that for? You're welcome. But I had like this weird, it was a bite that itched, but it had like a red center and then it was pale around it with a red circle around it. And I was like, what the heck bit me? What is that? And Kristen is terrified of spiders. And so she was like, that's a spider bite. I'm like, that's what a spider bite looks like? And she said, yeah. Like, she swears that she gets bit by spiders all the time because she hates them and she's paranoid. So if she, bye Carla. So if she thinks she's been bit by a spider, she will tear her room upside down trying to find the spider that bit her in. But she won't kill it. Then she'll call Travis. Daddy, there's a spider in my room. After she's torn it up looking for it. But that was the first time I'd ever been bitten by a spider. I guess it was a spider. I didn't feel it bite me. I had, I itched and I was like, oh, what left that mark? And then I've got a spot on my leg. I've got a horrible scar now because when I was immunocompromised from the chemo, something bit me. I have no idea what it was. I think it was a spider, but it got extremely, extremely infected, and I ended up in the hospital on IV antibiotics. I had to go to the wound care center to get it to heal correctly, and they had to burn it and all kinds of stuff. Oh, I didn't know that. Huh. I didn't know that. Oh, wow. I used to be afraid of spiders, but the way I got rid of my fear of spiders was I call them banana spiders, but I think there's more than one kind of banana spider. There is a kind of banana spider that's in South America that is poisonous, but the kind of banana spiders that we have here are not poisonous, and they're gorgeous. They're yellow and black, and I think they're beautiful, and they make the prettiest webs because they're just different looking. They don't look like a regular spider web. I can't even describe what they look like. They're just different looking. And I used to just look at the webs and think how pretty the webs were, and I stayed clear of them. And then Like I didn't kill, because we live next to a dairy. So we have all kinds of bugs out here because we got cows all over the place. So, especially flies, right? So, oh, that's cool. See, I like spiders now. I didn't like spiders before. One time, one of them built a giant web from door frame to door frame of my front door. And I was talking to my dad. This was way, like my early 20s, where I still lived at home in this house, but with my dad. I don't know. I think most of you know, like my dad gave me this house when he died. But anyway, so I was talking to him and looking at him and opened the door and was like fixing to go through the door and turn my head. Spider right there. I went, yeah, Florida banana spiders, right? Yeah, they don't bother you. If you don't bother them, they don't bother you. And they eat bugs. So I'm like, leave them alone. Just let them alone. They don't bother you. Their webs are really pretty. I like their webs. They're different than like regular spider webs. It's a different design. Yeah, their webs are gorgeous. Their webs are beautiful. And they like my porch for some reason. I've counted like 5, as many as 5 that have built their webs on my porch. And I will just sit out there. I've got a glider on the front porch, and I'll just sit out there and I'll look at them and just I love them. But then I saw jumping spiders on the internet, and I was like, oh my gosh, those are the coolest things. I want one so bad. So I found one outside. Regal jumping spiders are native to Florida, and they are the sweetest little things. They love humans. They really, really do. Their jaws are not strong enough to pierce human skin, so they can't bite you. And they will wave at you. They will run up and down your arm. They love humans. They're sweet little things. And they're so cute with all their little eyes, and they're just I had one. I have a habitat ready to go usually. So when I find one, I just scoop it up and put it in the habitat. I did have worms in the fridge, but they all died because we had one in our bedroom the other morning. I thought I was going to be late for streaming because I thought it was a male, but it wasn't. It was a female. It was just a really dark female. The females are usually gray and the males are black. So this was like the darkest female I'd ever seen, and I thought it was a male. But she was like here one day, over there the next day, over here the next day. And I was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to put them in there. My habitat is like that big. And I was like, wow. I thought it was a he. Like, he's all over the place. I don't think I'm going to put them in a little bitty habitat anymore. Now I feel bad. So then the other morning, Travis goes, I think our little buddy's dead. And I was like, what? No. So I went in there, and she was on the floor, and I picked her up, and it's a girl. He goes, how can you tell? And I said, because her little feeler thingies are fuzzy. The boys, they look like punching bags, and the girls looks like little bottle brushes. So it was a little girl. I flipped her over, and she was moving. She was still alive, and I was like, come here. And she climbed up. She was like walking on my hand, and I was like, here, let me see if I can find you some food. And, okay. I will, when you reply to a chat comment, would you mind reading it out loud so those of us listening know what you're replying to, please? I will try to remember. I know I'm bad about doing that. I will try. I'm sorry. So I got my worms out to feed her, and they were all dead. I felt so bad. I was like, oh no, she's gonna die. So I put her back outside, and I hope she lived, but she may have been too weak. But I wanted another female Regal because the male Regals that I've caught have not done well in captivity. But the female ones have done pretty well, but I've had to let them go. Like if they start to act like they're not doing well, I let them go. Because I don't want to kill them. I just want to watch them. I had a Pan-Tropical. The Pan-Tropicals seem to be hardier. Like they do better in captivity. And I had one for over a year, and I guess they only live like a couple of years. So I had a year. Travis found him outside and brought him in for me. And I guess he died of old age because I had him for over a year. And Travis wanted to name him Jack, Captain Jack, after Johnny Depp. So he was Jack. He would hear around things like leaves and sticks and stuff at me. I have lots of pictures of him like hiding and looking around stuff at me. They're fascinating to watch. I don't need therapy. Wiggles said, yeah, hard pass on that, sweetie. You might need therapy. I don't need therapy. They don't hurt you. Now, if it was dangerous, I won't mess with anything that's dangerous. Not even anything that's a tiny bit dangerous. Like the banana spiders, they will bite. They're not poisonous, but they will bite and it will hurt. I'm not touching anything that might hurt me. And Terry said, nope, too many legs, too many eyes. The too many eyes is what makes them cute, though. Terry. Mom said when I was little, I would let the big gray barn spiders crawl on me. I can't even imagine doing that now. Yeah, I don't think I would let barn spiders crawl on me. Yeah, that would be a hard no. Yes. Jumping spiders are the only spiders that are going to crawl on me. My sister-in-law I don't know. My brother doesn't talk to me anymore. I don't know why. I never did anything to him. He just doesn't have anything to do with me. That's fine. I don't care. But my sister-in-law had tarantulas. She had 2 of them at one time. And I forgot where they went. They went somewhere. And when they came home, one of the tarantulas had figured out how to get out of its terrarium. And they had to search the whole house to find it. And my mom was like, I'm not going back over there until they find that tarantula. But they found it. Tarantulas were. I mean, they were in their glass thingy, their terrarium or whatever it's called. Didn't bother me to sleep. I mean, they were contained, It didn't bother me to sleep in there. I used to like to watch them, but, it would. Yeah. Wiggles. I do that too. I freak out just a little bit when I feel a hair on me. Yeah. Because it feels like something's crawling on you, right? And I'm shedding so bad. Oh, let me show you what my friend made me. I taught my friend to crochet. She made me this. See all the little eyes? She got this. She said off for free. Got the pattern for free off of YouTube. I need to find this pattern and make a whole bunch of these. Isn't it cute? They're called petty palps. And on the boys, they look like boxing gloves. And on the females, they look like little bottle brushes. And the thing on the boys, their sex organs are inside. And so the sperm is made inside, but it goes up into these. And that's how they put the sperm into the female with these. Oh, really? That's cool. The umbrella guy's daughters have pets tarantulas. I don't want tarantulas. Oh, we bought after I caught my first Regal and it didn't do well and I let it go. I had Travis, I'm like, please, I want a jumping spider so bad. I want one so bad. Please buy me one. So we went out and bought one. And it was a teeny, itty, bitty baby. Like, it was going to molt again because it wasn't full grown. Paid $30 for that thing. Brought it home, put it in a habitat. A couple of days later, couldn't find him anywhere. Disappeared. And so I was on a Facebook group. A lady that sold jumping spiders. And she's like, what brand habitat did you have? It wasn't a Zilla, was it? And I was like, yeah, it was. Why? Well, they have tiny openings in them that really small spiders can get out of. I was like, oh, great. That's wonderful. So one of the spiders that live in my house is the $30 one that we bought. I have no idea where he went. Spider sex ed was not on your bingo card, Judy. I don't remember exactly where he puts those to get the sperm into the female spider, though. I forgot. But I'm not looking it up because I don't really care. I don't think you guys do either, so. So my brother, I have not seen him. Well, I've seen him. I've not spoken to him since my dad's funeral. And my dad was dead. There's we're not mad at each other. Nothing has happened. There wasn't a fight. There wasn't anything. That's just the way my brother is. If I were to pick up the phone and call him, we would talk. Nothing happened. Nothing went wrong. He just doesn't reach out to people. And for some reason, after my dad died, my stepmother still lived in this house for a few years, and she got in a car accident. And so after she was in the hospital, she went to a nursing home for like rehab therapy and stuff like that. He came, I lived next door. We had a trailer next door. So he came up here to visit her. He even came to the house for something, to this house. I don't remember why he came here. Came here. Didn't even go over there and knock on my door to say hello. I knew he was coming. Like, I waited over there all day long for him to call me. Because, like, I thought we were all going to go visit my stepmom together and, like, you know, have like a family gathering thing. And my stepdaughters were going to get to meet my brother for the first time. But he never called me. I didn't even know that he had come over here. Over the door, nothing. So where they are, and then let's just go to the nursing home. Maybe they'll show up. Drove to the nursing home. As we were turning in, they were pulling out. And like, so we honked our horn. They didn't stop anything. They just kept driving. I was like, I cannot believe this. I cannot believe this. Where are they going? What the heck? So I was, well, what do I do? I'm like, let's go home. Just go home. I was mad. I was so mad. I'm like, just go home. Just go home. And then I called and left a message on his home phone so he'd get it when he went home. I was like, what the hell, Glenn? You couldn't even come. You were here. And I think by the time I called him, I had talked to my stepmom. So she had told me that they had been to the house. I was like, what the hell, Glenn? You couldn't walk over and knock on my door and at least say hello to me? And then later, I got cancer. And I still never talked to him. I would call his house and talk to his wife to give her updates on me, but never talked to him. So I don't know if he even gave a damn or not, but that's just the way he is. And my uncle's like, Debbie, don't worry about it. That's just how Glenn is. I'm like, okay, whatever. You have a cane with a spider encased in... Oh, that's cool. A cane with a spider encased in glass as the top. That's neat, Terry. That's like John Hammond's cane, only that's a mosquito from Jurassic Park. My sister-in-law has a paperweight that has a black widow inside of it because she loves spiders. It's like an octagon shape, but the spider is up. Wait, where's the hourglass thing? Is it on their back or on their... It's on their back, right? Or is it on their belly? Anyway, the spider's positioned where you can see the hourglass thingy on his back. Is it on his back? Yeah. I think. I don't know. Belly? It's on the belly. Okay. So it's positioned where you can see the hourglass thing. Your brother messaged you and asked how to spell your dad's full name. He needed it for a marriage license? For whose marriage license? Well, my My brother is he's an alcoholic. I don't know if he's a recovered alcoholic or not. I think he is, but I'm not sure. But he's sweet when he's drunk. It's the only time he ever tells me that he loves me. He'll sometimes loves me and then pretty and he's not. I like being around when he's drunk. He's nicer when he's drunk. But my sister-in-law couldn't have any kids, which is actually a blessing in disguise, I think, because I don't think my brother would have been a good father at all. It's on its back. I don't know. Anyway, it's positioned where you can see it, but the process that it did to there's a gnat in here again. The process, whatever it was used to like freeze it in the, it's a clear thing in an octagonal shape, and then whatever process was used to put it in there turned it silver. And then I can't remember, it's still, it hasn't been so long since I've seen it. But your brother's a recovering misogynist. Man, I hate misogynists. Attitude of, I'm the big bad man and you're just a little woman. I don't get that. I don't get that attitude at all. Apparently, StreamYard's a misogynist too. Why is this break so long? goes through a whole how long of a break? Perfectly fine. Court comes back, it goes hinky.
What you're doing.
Is that your opinion?
No, sir.
Are you offering an opinion that Miss Reed's Lexus never got in a collision before?
The way I stated it was none of the prior events triggered by a collision.
What I'm asking you, are you offering an opinion that Miss Reed's Lexus never got into a collision before January 29, 2022, or on that day?
No.
So when you talking about collisions to the jury, you weren't making any suggestion that that Lexus was not in a collision.
Darn it, StreamYard! Knock it off.
That Miss Reed's Lexus.
Oh, he
was
does
not
look
ever-
like Larry a little bit.
No.
You're just saying that there's no data on the text string to suggest a collision.
Specifically, none of the events were triggered by a collision. That's
Text stream data can be triggered by a number of different things other than a collision. Isn't that true?
correct.
And in fact, when you talk about text stream data, you know that text stream data does not record a collision. You know that.
A collision is not one of the triggers. That's correct.
Right. So when you were saying it wasn't triggered by a collision, it's never going to be triggered by a collision ever on text stream data.
Not the collision in and of itself, correct?
Right.
Mhm.
Right. So there's other things that will trigger text stream data,
Correct.
like sudden acceleration.
The only acceleration trigger that I'm aware of on TextStream is if there's a large acceleration during what Lexus calls a PCS or a pre-collision safety event. But a large acceleration on its own, I do not believe is one of the triggers.
Are you sure you know a lot about text stream data?
Yes.
Oh my God!
Sustained.
Do you know a lot about text stream data?
Yes.
And you're saying that if a car accelerates over 30%, in and of itself wouldn't initiate a trigger?
I'm not sure I understand.
You just said pre-collision is the only time sudden acceleration, from your perspective, would cause a triggering event. Now, I'm asking you,
I'm allowing this.
if someone accelerated Miss Reed's Lexus at over 30% acceleration, would that cause a triggering event?
I am not sure what you mean by 30% acceleration.
Accelerator, 30%.
Accelerator pedal.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of triggers there's a number of ways that these VCH events can be triggered based on the accelerator pedal angle. I think, is that, yeah.
And what is the percentage from your experience that would create a triggering event?
There's various. Toyota, Lexus calls it high, medium to high is what they put it.
Do you have a number? Do you know the actual data on what percent of pressing the accelerator on the same Lexus as Miss Reed's would create a triggering event? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, I don't know the exact percentage down to this percentage point. No.
There is something different than the text stream data. That's the EDR data, correct?
Yes.
You would not expect, it would be abnormal for the EDR to register data based on a side swipe between a 6,000-pound Lexus and a 216-pound person, wouldn't it?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
That would be abnormal to register that data in the EDR, wouldn't it?
I don't know if I would use the word abnormal, but I would state it that there's a minimum threshold to record in the EDR. and a pedestrian impact generally wouldn't meet that.
I'm sorry.
A pedestrian impact generally wouldn't meet that, but I don't want to make a blanket statement as if it's always the
You're
case.
saying it would meet that,
Would not.
would not. Okay. And a side swipe or a clip has less force and impact than a head-on collision, depending on the speed, correct?
Generally, yes.
When you are discussing the triggering event, that is the moment that something registers to the car to capture data in the text string, correct?
Correct.
So if I was to suggest 30% of depressing the accelerator pedal would cause a triggering event, would the triggering event be when it reaches 30%?
Yes.
The event data captures potentially part of an event, doesn't it?
I think we're into semantics a little bit, and I think it depends on what you mean by event.
Exactly.
Because previously we'd been talking about an event as the data, but event can mean a lot of other things.
If an event's only 3 seconds long and 10 seconds of data is captured, then the data will capture more than the event, correct?
Correct.
If the event is longer, 15 seconds, 20, 25 seconds, and the data is only captured for 10, the text stream data only captures part of the event.
Correct.
Fair to say?
Very fair.
So when you're looking at the data, it doesn't tell you about the entire event, correct?
The data only tells us about the window of time the data captures. There's no way to know beyond that from the data.
All of your equations and pluses and minuses and graphs you're talking about deal with the 10-second text stream data that was captured, correct?
They deal with event 1162.2, right, and the 10 seconds it's comprised of. Actually, they really just deal with the end of the event. That's what everything in the Aperture reports referenced.
Fair enough. But it doesn't deal with anything that could potentially happen after those 10 seconds, does it?
No.
Or anything before?
No, it does not.
The triggering event is spot in the middle, it captures 5 seconds before, 5 seconds after.
Approximately 5 seconds. It's not exact.
And you would have to look elsewhere for evidence to know what might have happened before. Yes?
Correct.
And you'd have to look elsewhere for evidence to see or determine what happened after.
Yes.
Do you know at the end of this triggering event, that 10-second window of data, do you know what happened with the defendant's Lexus after that 10-second of data?
No.
You have no idea, right?
I don't.
Okay. I want to just ask you some questions about your background and then leading into this case, if I could. You have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree.
That's correct.
You've worked for your company for some time.
Coming up on 13 years next month. Correct.
You've advanced through the company.
Yes.
You presently are the director of engineering.
Yes.
Are you ACTAR certified?
No.
What is ACTAR?
ACTAR is a body that basically offers a certification in accident reconstruction.
Do you offer services as an accident reconstructionist?
Sometimes.
And you have been hired and come into court and offer opinions as an accident reconstructionist?
In the singular time I've testified in court, it was not specifically for accident reconstruction. It was data analysis.
Okay. You continue your education and you go to a number of different trainings and seminars as well as teach, correct?
Regularly.
And when you regularly go to continuing education, you have quite a bit of continuing education that you've been through, haven't you?
Sorry?
You've been through quite a bit of continuing education.
Yes.
You focus, as part of your specialty, on EDRs, don't you?
That's correct.
Event data recorders?
Correct.
In fact, when you promote your services, that's one of your real specialty, isn't it?
Correct.
And it's something that not only are you schooled on and you go through continuing education, you're well published, aren't you?
That's correct.
And in your publications, you speak primarily about EDR type information.
Yes.
And that's something you are well skilled in, isn't it?
Yes,
Now, forensics or data forensics is a wide field, isn't it?
it is.
And you can do some things or many things in it. But oftentimes people specialize in parts of data forensics, don't they?
Generally, yes.
Well, speaking of you, you specialize in EDRs, true?
Yes.
There is a difference in different subspecialties, isn't there?
In general,
Oh, yes.
yes.
Okay. Now, are cell phones, is that a subspecialty in digital forensics?
Yes.
Is that something you're a specialist in?
No.
iPhones, are you a specialist in iPhones?
No.
Have you ever taken any specific training on mobile forensics?
No.
Have you ever written any papers on mobile forensics?
No.
Hey, have you ever promoted yourself of having any type of subspecialty as an expert in mobile forensics?
Never.
In any of your continuing education, and you have a vast amount, have you ever taken any classes or seminars in mobile forensics?
No.
Have you ever taken any class or study about variances between infotainment systems and mobile forensics?
Classes? No.
Have you ever attended any seminars on variances relative to mobile forensics?
No.
Have you ever testified about variances in mobile forensics before you testified in this court today?
No.
Have you ever published anything to do with variances in mobile forensics?
No.
In this case, you had an opportunity to review a number of reports from Dr. Judd Welcher. Yes?
Yes.
And Mr. Shannon Burgess.
Correct.
In reviewing those reports, you've offered your opinions and analysis. Did you ever engage in actually any?
Could you maybe clarify what specifically you're asking?
Yes. Did you ever yourself, not watch someone else do it, did you ever download or obtain data in this case?
No.
Did you ever test Miss Reed's car?
No.
Did you ever get an exemplar vehicle to run any tests?
I did not.
Did you ever do any actual testing in this case?
No.
And so your role is to look at other people's work and offer opinions and criticisms, basically.
And provide some clarity to the work, but generally, yes.
Clarity for who? Who asked you to provide clarity?
My clients in this case.
You what?
Mr. Jackson, my client.
Did you ever speak to me?
No.
As an
What is he taking?
expert, when you analyze data, whether you
Is he taking offense that he used his own expert's measurements? Seriously, what is his problem with that?
you actively got it yourself or not, do you ever give an opinion in paper called a report? You ever write a report?
Yes.
And you've seen reports in this case that you've looked at, correct?
Correct.
A number of reports by Mr. Burgess,
Correct.
report by Dr. Welcher,
Also correct.
reports that you're critiquing, right?
Correct.
Did you see Ian Whiffin's reports?
I did not.
How about Jessica Hyde? Did you see her reports? You were asked to consider information from Mr. Whiffin's report.
No.
Well, you were asked to assume that the last user interaction on John O'Keefe's cell phone was 12/32/09.
That was stated in Dr. Welcher's report, so I started my analysis at that level.
So none of the information did you actually personally go and vet or analyze or make any determinations about? You're just critiquing written reports.
Correct.
Well, as an expert coming into court and testifying and having opinions, you put together a PowerPoint, didn't you?
Yes.
Why didn't you ever put together a report to share the basis of your opinions and the process you went through to arrive at your opinions before you came into court?
Primarily, I wasn't asked to, so I didn't do it. I wouldn't commission work without being asked to do it. And number two, the extent of my work beyond building the PowerPoint was just basic addition, just adding numbers together that already existed in the Aperture reports. So there wasn't a tremendous amount of complexity to what I engaged in.
What about your work product and your calculations? Did you do all this in your head, or did you type it out and go through a computer program? How did you do it?
I used a calculator for most of it, and the tables in my PowerPoint were generated in Excel, which has some calculation capabilities.
Were you ever asked not to write a report?
No.
You had provided an initial PowerPoint,
Yes.
and then you received information from Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
and then you added new slides to your PowerPoint.
That's correct.
Mr. Burgess's report was May 8th.
Yes.
You provided your PowerPoint on May 25th.
Correct.
Did it take you that long for the calculations between when you got the report and May 25th to put together the new presentation?
No, it didn't.
Why did you wait until May 25th to provide the new information?
That's when I was asked to do it.
What do you mean by that? I just want to see what the date is today. Today's the 30th. When you finished your PowerPoint on May 25th, did you send it to the defense on May 25th?
Yes, I did.
They had a copy of your PowerPoint on May 25th. Don't be shy.
No, I'm pretty sure it was the 25th.
So sustained.
Break it. Do you really want to go there?
Yeah, if it wasn't the 25th, it would have been maybe the day after, but it's dated the 25th. I'm almost positive I provided it on the 25th.
Oh, he does look like Mr.
No, I think it was the 25th.
Do you know what was provided to the Commonwealth that report?
No, I don't.
In the 25th, the report that you provided to the defense on the 25th, it had new information, didn't it?
It had the information from Mr. Burgess's supplemental report. That was the additions.
Why did you wait until the 25th to put it together?
That's when I was asked to do it.
Who asked?
My clients, Mr. Jackson.
He said, please have it on the 25th.
We had a phone call on the 25th and discussed Mr. Burgess's supplemental report. During that phone call, he asked me to update the presentation, and I did so, and then provided it.
How did the date of the 25th come about? Why the 25th was the date provided?
That's when he requested it. I think it was a Sunday, actually.
When you first got involved in this case, it was last fall,
Correct.
and at that time, you received some information that Mr. Burgess wanted to look at the text stream data or the different modules on what you later learned was the defendant's Lexus, correct?
Correct.
There was a proposal from Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess wanted to go back to the car and look at the modules to try to download more information from them, correct?
Correct.
And you then got involved to look at what his request was, the procedures that you wanted to follow.
Yes.
When you did that, were you given any materials about what had happened before you and Mr. Burgess both got involved?
I don't recall specifically, and I don't think so. I think I was just provided the notice of testing that was to be done.
Well, you ended up drafting an affidavit.
I did.
And in drafting an affidavit, you pointed out some oversights of Mr. Burgess, didn't you?
I did.
Determining the oversights required some study of actually the data and the information that was available, wouldn't it?
It would.
So can we presume that before you wrote the affidavit pointing out the oversights, you had looked at other materials?
If I recall correctly, the notice of additional testing from Mr. Burgess contained attached to it a whole report by him documenting why he thought there was an inadequate initial acquisition, why he thought the sizes were wrong. So I don't remember referencing anything beyond all the information that was contained in that. Now, whether that was combined by somebody else or not, I don't know. That's how it was provided.
Did you end up looking at the report of Ms. Gaffney and what had happened in the past with the download and search of Ms. Reed's Lexis materials?
If I'm remembering right again, I think Ms. Gaffney's report was also attached to that same singular file.
You learned that the defense expert, Ms. Gaffney, had downloaded data from chips, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Burgess was asserting that there was information missing and believed that there was missing information from the chips.
Correct.
In that form, it's sustained.
It's
It's stricken.
My apologies. The conclusion Mr. Burgess had is that he believed there was missing information from the chips.
He did. He miscalculated the size of the chips.
Did you do any study to see if there was actually information missing from the original download?
No, I looked at the data sheets for the chips and then immediately realized what the error was. The data sheets specify a size in megabits or gigabits. And Mr. Burgess had written his report in the context of megabytes and gigabytes.
And then you asserted, or you took the position in your affidavit, that there should be no further chip off, no further study of those chips, other than to ensure the amount of memory was sufficient.
It's not how I recall specifically what I said.
Well, let me read it because I don't want to try to malign your words.
Please.
Mr. Burgess proposed protocol labeled "Reattempt chip-off acquisition is unnecessary because the file size of the acquisition performed by Ms. Gaffney already matches the expected memory storage capacity of the components."
That sounds accurate.
If you want to see this, I don't want to read from the document. If you need to see it for action, just let me know.
That's fine. I trust your reading.
However, an acquisition may be conducted for the sole purposes of ensuring the contents of the memory chips have not been altered since the last testing by recording the checksum.
Yes.
Did it cross your mind at that point that there was important data in those modules that was not seen or recovered or obtained by Ms. Gaffney?
No.
Did you want to know when Mr. Burgess was looking for more data, more information, what he thought was missing?
He stated, I think in his report or affidavit, I'm not sure what it was, but he stated what he thought was missing was there was a physical size difference. So he thought there was not corrupt data, but just missing chunks of data.
Log on information, you've heard of that. Ignition on, ignition off information
Yes.
in an infotainment system. That's important information when you're reconstructing an accident, isn't it?
It could be.
Well, you read information in this case. Pretty important in this case, what you said.
Yes.
And so you would not want to engage in that process without this pretty important information, would you?
Which process?
Of an accident reconstruction?
Sorry, so can you restate it, the whole question?
I'll
Yeah.
ask it again.
Yeah.
You said you have some experience in accident reconstructions.
Yes.
Don't you want all the data available? More data the better?
Generally, yes.
You wouldn't want to ignore data on purpose, would you?
No.
I mean, the data analyst, the more data, the more you get to look at.
Yes.
And so the power log on information that actually has date and time, that's critical in an accident reconstruction, isn't it?
In some accident reconstructions, in some, there's no debate about when a vehicle was on or off, but if there is, then yes.
Not just on and off. The power log on and off gives you the date and the time that you can match with the text stream data, correct?
Yes, it
Because
does.
you know text stream data itself doesn't have date and time.
It can, this vehicle didn't. It can, but this vehicle did not.
This had a running time instead. Like a
That's
stopwatch.
correct.
So this data that was not found during the initial process, that was critical data at the time.
I don't think prior to the process, anyone knew that this particular Lexus infotainment system stored those key on and key off times.
Right, the only person that found this out was Shannon Burgess.
He found it in the process, but I don't think anybody knew in advance of this case. There was nothing out there about it. So to my knowledge, this is the first time that this specific data has ever been released into the wild.
But it was on the board there. If someone knew what to look for or got creative, they could maybe find it.
Yes, more so to your if got creative, because I don't think anyone would have been able to have the foreknowledge that there would have definitely been that.
Shannon Burgess did.
Sustained. I'll strike it.
And when Shannon Burgess went to obtain that data that everybody else overlooked or didn't know about, you went with him.
Yes.
So you had a process where he was going to now control the data and take the information that was left behind and remove it from the infotainment board, correct?
He actually never specified anything about the SD card in that initial notice. So it was a departure from his protocol, and it was a little surprising to me when I got there that the protocol was written with a specific focus on a number of other chips. And it became very apparent to me very quickly that the focus was not on those chips, and the focus was on this SD card that had previously been unmentioned. There was nothing in there about that prior to that.
Did it offend you, or were you impressed that he had found that?
I was a little confused because I went into it with an expectation. Generally, if we write a protocol, we adhere to the protocol. If we're going to deviate, we have a discussion about deviations. So I was just surprised. It's not customary to sort of shift out of nowhere. But other than that, I did not know what to think of it because I'd never heard of that.
Did you give any input? Did you have any knowledge about the SD card and how it worked?
No.
So when you watched Mr. Burgess remove the SD card, did you appreciate he'd have to engage in what you call reverse engineering?
He did not elaborate to me exactly what his whole process was at first. It sort of came out as time progressed through the first day in his office in Texas. And then I learned more as we moved to the second testing in Massachusetts. But he didn't explain it to me in one go.
Did you, at that point, understand or appreciate the relevance of the SD card relative to the infotainment system and what it could do as far as the amount of information that could then be available?
He never spoke throughout the 3 days at all about what kind of data he expected from the card or would be on the card or could be. He made no mention of the data.
Not what he said to you, but given your expertise, did it ever dawn on you the significance or importance of this SD card that was sitting in plain sight?
Objection. Sustained. You can ask it differently.
Did it ever dawn on you, as Mr. Burgess was recovering this information left behind, that there was something important or significant about it?
At the time, I thought it was a possibility. If you reference the initial work, a number of different memory components were identified in this infotainment. There isn't a singular memory chip. So if we're looking for data, it could be in any of them. So we found a new source of data storage, and there could be something there. There could be nothing there. It was unknown to me.
But it turned out there was.
There was.
Now, when you were watching Mr. Burgess work as an expert, if you felt like there was something inappropriate or he had some great oversight, you could write a report about that, couldn't you?
I could.
Did you ever write any report in this case?
No.
So you never wrote a report for your preparation of coming in and your data in the PowerPoint presentation, right?
Correct.
You never wrote a report regarding any of your observations of Mr. Burgess.
Correct.
You said that he didn't say anything. He spoke to you quite a bit during the process, didn't he?
He did.
He showed you what he was doing.
He did.
He explained to you what he was doing.
He explained the process. I think you had asked me earlier about whether he explained the data, and he didn't.
He demonstrated great proficiency, wouldn't you say?
He ended up with a successful acquisition of the card at the end of the process.
When you are considering all your equations, did you consider the timing information taken from the SD card that Mr. Burgess found regarding power on and power off of that car?
Yes, to the extent that he considered it in his own report. Again, I'm referencing his report.
But how about you? You're coming in here giving an opinion saying what's better or best practice or right. How about you? Did you consider, you personally, the one who's giving the opinions, did you consider the significance of the power on, power off data as it relates to all these times?
Yes.
Yes, you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I considered it. If that's the question is, did I consider it? I considered it.
Did you do any study yourself?
No.
Now, we agree, or you agree, that there are variances between different devices.
Yes.
So a Lexus clock that comes from the infotainment system is very common that it would be different than a different device like an iPhone.
Specifically this Lexus, I don't know if we can make the statement that it's common or not, because again, this is the only time that I know of that this specific data has been analyzed. So I don't know the answer to that question.
Did you say on direct examination that variances between devices are common?
Variance between devices are common.
In a variance of 45 seconds, that wouldn't be remarkable on
No.
different devices. It's common in the industry.
Correct.
And in your business, that's an accepted amount.
I'm not sure what you mean by accepted. The amounts are what they are, and we have to correct for them. I've done analyses of clocks that are anywhere from completely correct, 1 second off. I've done analyses of clocks that are 25 years apart. So it's a wide range of possibilities.
I understand your point.
Yeah.
If you see as an analyst a 45-second variance or 30-second variance, that wouldn't shock you, would it?
No amount of variance would shock me, is the answer.
I want to ask you questions and go through your PowerPoint. And I want to ask you your specific opinions and how you arrived at certain claims that you've made.
Sure.
Okay? If we could put up Mr. DeSorga's new PowerPoint, 52525. You've made a modification to your PowerPoint.
Yes.
You've made an amendment to your PowerPoint.
Yes.
So there was something that happened, you received new information or new data, and you updated or changed your PowerPoint.
I did.
And that's an appropriate thing to do when you receive new information, isn't it?
Yes.
If you have new data, you don't want to leave it behind. You want to make the best presentation with the best data you can.
I'd want my presentation of the data to be as accurate as possible. So I included all the data.
And you would expect that from any expert, wouldn't you? If they received new information or analyzed new data and it was important, it would be an appropriate best practice to update the PowerPoint or information they're providing, wouldn't it?
Objection.
I'm going to allow that.
I don't know if I would tell other experts what their best practices are. I would say generally as experts, we do work that our clients ask us to do. So if we're asked to do it, we do it. If our clients say, hey, don't do that, then we don't do it.
Well, you like the phrase best practice on direct, so I'm just wondering if I can borrow that phrase.
Sustain.
Okay. We can turn to page 2. Now, this is taken from Dr. Welcher's report.
Yes.
And again, you did no testing whatsoever. You just
I
read the
did not.
report. Did you read all of Dr. Welcher's data, the gigabytes and gigabytes of data? Did you go through it all?
Not every slide, no.
Not just the PowerPoint. I mean the actual massive amount of data in his study. Did you go through the data?
Oh, no, I didn't look at any of the data.
Did you ever speak to Dr. Welcher?
No.
And so when you are making assumptions on what he thought or how he analyzed, you're just guessing.
I am looking at what Dr. Welcher put in his trial presentation, and my assumption that's baked in there is that he's going to stand behind the things he says in a presentation. So I'm taking them at face value, but as being correct.
It's not a matter
I'm
of
not guessing.
It's not a matter if he's going to stand behind it. You don't know why he put something in here. You just see it on the paper. You don't know what his thought process was, did you?
To an extent, yes, because I understand how the exemplar testing by Aperture laid the foundation to align the key-on events in the infotainment to the Lexus VCH events.
When Dr. Welcher made his PowerPoint, do you know whether or not he was relying on 154 on Mr. O'Keefe's phone, stamp 154, as the end of the event as opposed to the beginning of the 3-point turn, 1162.1?
based on the math he uses, that's the implication. He puts a number on the screen that the only way you could reach that number is by making that assumption. So when I looked at the math, yes, that assumption seems baked into the math he did.
So this seems like it's baked in that he was assuming 154 on John O'Keefe's phone was the end of the three-point turn.
Not on this slide, on a later slide, but yes.
Okay. And you said that variances, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, they're very common when you're comparing two different devices, right?
Yes.
Okay. Return to the next page, please. You point out 2 times for the jury, the Lexus event 11:62:2 ends 12:31:43, right?
Yes.
And that's based on the clock in the infotainment system.
In the infotainment unit and the cumulative key on timer in the text stream data. So it's a combination of 2 values.
Which is the running clock.
Correct.
Right. And that is compared or contrasted or coordinated with the log on off time that was found on the SD card. Yes?
Yes.
And without that SD card, we wouldn't have that time now, would we?
Correct.
Okay. 12:32:09 isn't something you analyzed, but you just read in the report that that is information from Ian Whiffen suggesting or taking the position that was the last user interaction John O'Keefe had with his cell phone, 12:32:09.
That's how I understand it. There was a phone lock at 12:32:09. I did not look into the underlying reports from where that came.
And you know those are 2 different devices, 2 different clocks that will have a variance.
Yes.
You mentioned trigger event, and you said that your preference is to, when you're doing times, to point it from the actual trigger event. And there was a little slap for emphasis to target you on that, right? The trigger event. That's not a standard practice or a protocol that is supported by any type of literature, is it?
It's the methodology I teach, especially in the class I teach on the analysis of heavy vehicle data. We have the exact same problem with heavy vehicles. They all have clocks on them. And so in fact, I do a lot of clock adjustment on heavy vehicles relative to other sources. And the way I teach it, I'm not the only instructor. Collectively, the way we all teach it is we generally start the analysis at the trigger, which is not to suggest you have to do that. It's not wrong to do it a different way, but that would be let's call it the default methodology.
The default methodology, do you have any professional literature that says that is the best time to start the analysis?
Not literature. I mean, that's sort of my opinion, because that introduces the least amount of variables. Once you start trying to align events off of subsequent times, you just introduce more addition and subtraction or math you have to do. So it's easiest to do T0 and align everything from there.
If you line up the end of one event with the end of another event, it's more coordinated than if you take it from different spots, isn't it?
That could be a scenario where then you wouldn't use it. Right. Like I said, it's not the only way, but it's the default way.
I don't disrespect your method, but there are other ways to do it that are just as legitimate as the trigger mark.
Absolutely. And that's why I didn't change the convention here. I used their convention,
So you're
apertures.
not suggesting that Mr. Burgess was being misleading by choosing the endpoint when he pronounced that's exactly the point he was considering, are you?
No.
And so the word cherry picking, you're not saying.
He
cherry
just
picking.
said there's more than one way.
I don't remember the context in which I used the word cherry picking, but I don't think it was with respect to a trigger alignment.
So there's no legitimate professional basis of suggesting your way is better or worse than going from the front or the end of the event.
No.
You're not offering criticism on that. So just so I understand it.
Not criticism. I pointed out that it's not typical, and I pointed out not even to say specifically that it's not typical, because even that, to your point, might sound critical. I just want to be clear that I adopted their convention. It's not the way I would have done it, but I kept that convention consistent in my analysis. So I wasn't changing in the middle, trying to obfuscate what I'm saying.
I appreciate that. So if someone's looking end to end, you're not going to add 5 seconds. It's if someone went from middle to end.
Could you give me that?
Yeah, you were
A little
suggesting
different.
those questions about, well, since you're looking at the end instead of the middle, then you got to add another 5 seconds on. That's not really an accurate analysis if you're looking at a comparison from end to end. You wouldn't then add the 5 seconds to the time of the trigger because you're starting at the end from both devices.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow it if you can answer it in that form.
It's going to depend on if you're doing an alignment with something that is a range of values, then you have to be consistent on where you're doing it. If you're doing discrete points, then that's just a single point in time. There's no beginning or end. It's just a single second. So the best answer I can kind of give is it depends on what you're doing.
Well, in this case, they were basing it off the end of the event, the end, not trigger, the end, comparing it comparatively to the end of a different device. So you wouldn't just add 5 seconds just for the heck of it.
You would not add 5 seconds for the heck of it.
You see 12:32:09 minus 12:31:43, the middle line, equals 26 seconds. Isn't that in Dr. Welcher's slides before, let me phrase it more cleanly. Before Shannon Burgess analyzed the data more closely on May 8th, in his May 8th report, isn't this the exact difference in time that Dr. Welcher cites in his PowerPoint, 26 seconds?
Objection.
I'll sustain it in there.
Did you see when you reviewed reports that Dr. Welcher uses this exact number plus 26 seconds in his report?
I got the number from the PowerPoint.
I'm sorry,
not the
PowerPoint.
report, but that is all of the numbers here on this slide are from Dr. Welcher's PowerPoint. And on the previous slide, I show that. So these are all just copied straight from that.
And you've labeled this John's interaction window.
I did.
Okay. Interaction window. Do you think it might be confusing when you use interaction window to make it seem like the event was limited to 10 seconds?
No, and that's not the implication there at all.
That's not what you're trying to say.
That's not what I'm trying to say.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
If I can clarify what I mean by interaction window is that there's
Please do.
a range of times that we end up with when we start running these adjustments. So we never land on a singular point of alignment. We end up, like I showed at the end, with 30 points. That's the window that I'm talking about. That's the window that I mean.
So if we could put up page 33 from Dr. Welcher's PowerPoint, just to illustrate the point you're trying to help us with. Would you like to add a little for me? So this represents, you've seen this, right?
It looks familiar, like it's from one of his slides. And if I've seen it, I did not spend a lot of time digging into it.
Does this look like the 10 seconds of data that would be captured from a triggering event in a text stream data?
Objection.
I want to see you at sidebar.
Sidebar. Jeez. I get that they have to do this, but it is so confusing. I hope somebody on the jury understands it. Because I know I don't. ARCA is much better at explaining things to where you can understand, like, the practicality of it instead of all being numbers and figures. And I mean, they do that too, but they can make you understand what they're talking about. So far, the only thing I've understood is that he locked his phone after the event was triggered, whatever that means. I guess after she backed up, where they're alleging that was when the collision happened, he still was able to lock his phone. So that must prove that she didn't hit him.
So jurors, we're going to release you for the luncheon break. I took so long here to make sure that we could give you a nice full hour luncheon break. So we'll see you back here in an hour.
Please rise for the jury.
Hang on, I want to see if she's gonna talk to the lawyers.
Sir, follow me, please.
Okay, did she just leave? Okay. All right. 1:55, guys. I will see you back. I'll see you back at 1:55. Everybody have a nice lunch. If you can't rejoin me, I will see you guys next week or Sunday at 2 Eastern for our members only. Bye.